Prologue. Ash on silk. The crystal vase shattered against marble with a sound like breaking bones. I didn't flinch. 3 years as Adrian Blackwell's household manager had taught me the art of stillness. How to stand with eyes downcast while wealthy men destroyed beautiful things. How to clean blood from Persian rugs without asking questions. How to be furniture when the screaming started. Get out. His voice was ice wrapped in silk. Expensive. Controlled. Deadly. The woman, blonde, tearful, wearing last season's Chanel, fled past me without a glance. The click of her heels on marble faded into the November rain outside. I moved forward with dustpan and broom, already calculating replacement costs. Baccarat. $1,800. He'd barely notice. Leave it, Eleanor. Froze. In 3 years, Adrian Blackwell had never used my name. I was you or the help or nothing at all. Just another invisible woman maintaining the machinery of his empire. I looked up. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse study. Manhattan spread beneath him like a conquered kingdom. Even at 38, even disheveled from whatever had sent his mistress running, he was devastating. Dark hair touched with premature silver at the temples. A face carved from aristocratic angles and old money arrogance. Gray eyes that could gut you with a glance. Those eyes fixed on me now. Really seeing me for the first time. How long have you worked here? 3 years, Mr. Blackwell. My voice was steady. Practiced. The faint Irish lilt I'd never quite erased made it sound softer than I felt. 3 years. He repeated it like discovering a new species. And I don't know a single thing about you. That was intentional. I'd made myself a ghost in his house. No personality, no history, no presence beyond the perfectly pressed linens, and the dinner served at precisely 7. Invisible was safe. Invisible was necessary. There's nothing to know, sir. I manage your household. That's all. That's all, he echoed. Then he laughed, a sound without humor. Christ, I'm surrounded by shadows. People who tell me what I want to hear or nothing at all. At least Caroline had the spine to throw things before she left. Caroline. The blonde. Already forgotten, probably. A mistress was interchangeable in Adrian Blackwell's world. Staff even more so. Will you require anything else this evening? Kept my tone neutral. Professional. Honesty. He turned from the window, and something in his expression made my pulse stutter. Just once, I'd like someone in this goddamn building to be honest with me. Dangerous. This was dangerous. Men like Adrian Blackwell didn't want honesty. They wanted compliance wrapped in flattery. But he was watching me with an intensity that felt like a challenge. Like a test. You want honesty. The words came before I could stop them. Before sense could override the rage I'd kept caged for 3 years. You're brilliant and cruel in equal measure. You build empires and destroy anyone in your path. You have everything money can buy and nothing that actually matters. And you don't even know the names of the people who keep your life running because we're beneath your notice. How's that for honest? Silence fell like a guillotine. I'd crossed every line. Shattered every protocol. In 3 seconds, I destroyed the perfect invisibility I'd cultivated so carefully. The persona that had let me slip through his defenses unnoticed. The mask that had hidden my real purpose. Adrian moved closer. Each step deliberate. Predatory. I should run. Should apologize. Should do anything except stand there while he closed the distance between employer and help. Between power and powerlessness. He stopped inches away. Close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something dark and expensive. Close enough to see the silver threading through his dark hair. The faint scar above his left eyebrow. Close enough to count the shades of gray in eyes that held something I couldn't name. What's your full name? My heart hammered. Eleanor Margaret Hartley. Where are you from? Dublin. Originally. Truth mixed with lies. The best kind of cover. Why did you come to New York? This was the question. The one I'd prepared for. The lie I'd polished until it shone like truth. My fiancé and I were going to start over here. Fresh beginning, he said. Away from family expectations and old grudges. I let my voice crack just slightly. Just enough. He died 6 months after we arrived. Accident at a construction site in Queens. After that I just survived. This job, this life, it pays the bills. Not entirely a lie. Michael had died in Queens. The construction site accident was public record. Everything I'd said was verifiable, carefully constructed to pass any background check. What I didn't say: Michael hadn't been my fiancé. He'd been my brother. 23 years old, brilliant, gentle, with dreams of designing buildings that would touch the sky. He'd died because Adrian Blackwell wanted a property razed 3 days before the demolition permits cleared. Because Adrian Blackwell didn't believe in waiting. Because a crew of undocumented workers rushing to meet an illegal deadline weren't careful enough, weren't protected enough. Because Adrian Blackwell had never learned that human lives had value beyond their utility to him. What I didn't say: I'd spent 3 years getting close. 3 years erasing Eleanor Hartley from digital existence and creating a perfect ghost. 3 years learning his patterns, his weaknesses, the fault lines in his armor. What I didn't say: I was done being invisible. I'm sorry about your fiancé. Adrian's voice had gentled, almost human. That must have been unbearable. Thank you. I lowered my eyes. Demure, grieving, harmless. His hand touched my chin. Tilted my face up until I had no choice but to meet his gaze. You're wasted as a housekeeper, Eleanor Hartley. That kind of honesty, that fire, it's rare. Valuable. Every nerve screamed danger. His touch was burning. Deliberate. His eyes held calculation and something darker. Something that recognized a kindred spirit even if he didn't yet know why. I need someone I can trust, he continued. Someone who isn't afraid to tell me when I'm being an arrogant bastard. Someone who sees the machinery of my life and can make it run better. My current executive assistant is leaving. Marriage, babies, all that. The position is yours if you want it. This was the moment. The knife's edge I'd been walking toward for 3 years. Refuse and I'd stay invisible. Locked in the prison of my perfect cover. Accept and I'd have access to everything. His calendar, his contacts, his files. The inner workings of Blackwell Industries. Every secret, every sin, every piece of leverage I needed to dismantle him from within. Accept and I'd have to get closer. So much closer than I'd ever planned. Close enough to burn. My voice caught. That's very generous, Mr. Blackwell, but I don't have the qualifications. You've been running my household flawlessly for 3 years. You coordinate staff, manage budgets, handle crises I never even hear about. That's exactly the skill set I need. The rest you'll learn. His thumb brushed my jawline, casual, possessive. Say yes, Eleanor. I should have felt triumph. This was better than any scenario I'd imagined. He was handing me the keys to his kingdom. Instead, I felt the first flutter of doubt. Because there was something in his eyes that looked almost like loneliness. Something human beneath the monster. Well, I crushed that thought immediately. He didn't get to be human. He didn't get to be vulnerable or lonely or anything except the man who'd killed my brother and never lost a single night's sleep over it. Yes, I whispered. I'll take the position. His smile was beautiful and terrible. Good. We start Monday. Clear your schedule. You're about to become intimately familiar with my world, Eleanor. Every meeting, every deal, every secret. You'll know me better than anyone. That's what I'm counting on, I thought. But what I said was, thank you, Mr. Blackwell. I won't disappoint you. Adrian, he corrected. We're going to be working closely. Very closely. First names are appropriate. Adrian. His name tasted like poison and promise on my tongue. He released me. Step back. The spell, if it had been a spell, broke. Have a good evening, Eleanor. Monday morning, 7 sharp. Wear something appropriate for the office. No more maids' uniforms. Of course. Good night, Adrian. I left his study with measured steps, descended to the service quarters where staff lived, locked myself in my small room, 8 by 10 feet of carefully maintained anonymity. Only then did I let myself breathe. Only then did I let myself smile. 3 years. 3 years of scrubbing his floors and washing his sheets and remaining invisible while rage ate me alive from the inside out. 3 years of planning, positioning, waiting for exactly this opportunity. I pulled out the photograph I kept hidden in my pillowcase. Michael, 23. Grinning at the camera outside the brownstone where he'd rented a room. 2 weeks before the building came down. 2 weeks before Adrian Blackwell's impatience turned my brother into a statistic. I'm in, I whispered to the photo. To the ghost who'd haunted me every day since. I'm finally in. And before I'm done, Adrian Blackwell is going to know exactly what it feels like to lose everything. I kissed my brother's face. Then I burned the photograph. Because Eleanor Hartley, grieving fiancée, didn't have a brother. She was alone in the world. Vulnerable. Perfect. The ashes curled into the air like prayers. Like promises. Like the beginning of the end. Monday morning arrives with the weight of new beginnings and old vengeance. Chapter 1. The Art of Disappearing. Monday morning arrived dressed in gunmetal gray. Manhattan stretched below Adrian's 52nd floor office like a chessboard, and I was about to become a queen piece instead of a pawn. I'd chosen my armor carefully. Navy suit from Zara. Expensive enough to look professional, cheap enough to match my supposed salary history. Hair pulled back in a neat chignon. Minimal makeup except for the red lipstick that made me look competent rather than pretty. I needed him to see capability, not decoration. Eleanor. Punctual. Adrian looked up from his desk as I entered at precisely 6:55. He'd been here for hours already. I knew his patterns. Up at 5, gym at 5:30, office by 6:15. The man ran on discipline and black coffee. Good. We have a lot to cover. The office was brutal in its minimalism. Glass, steel, black leather. Nothing soft except the view. It matched him perfectly. Beautiful and cold with sharp edges everywhere. I've prepared orientation materials. He gestured to a stack of binders on the conference table. Contracts, NDAs, access protocols. But first coffee. How do you take yours? The question surprised me. In 3 years he'd never asked my preference for anything. Black. 2 sugars. He moved to the espresso machine built into the wall, ridiculous luxury, and prepared 2 cups with a focus he brought to everything. Precise. Controlled. Perfect. Everything you see, hear, or handle in this office is confidential. He handed me the cup, our fingers brushing briefly. I'm not exaggerating. The people I do business with don't tolerate leaks. Neither do I. Sign the NDAs and understand. Breaking them has consequences. I understand. I sipped the coffee. Perfect temperature, perfect sweetness. Course it was. Good. He settled into his chair, studying me over the rim of his cup. Tell me what you know about Blackwell Industries. This was a test. I'd prepared for it. Real estate development primarily, with holdings in hospitality and commercial properties throughout Manhattan and the tri-state area. 47 active projects currently. You've been CEO since your father's death 8 years ago. Under your leadership, company valuation has tripled. You're known for aggressive timelines and premium results. Pause. Also for not caring who you step on to get them. His eyebrow lifted. That last part isn't in the company materials. You asked for honesty, remember? So I did. Something that might have been approval flickered across his face. You're right, of course. I don't apologize for my methods. Results matter. Sentiment doesn't build empires. Sentiment doesn't value human life either, I thought. But what I said was, what do you need from me? Everything. He opened a laptop, turned it toward me. His calendar filled the screen, a color-coded nightmare of back-to-back meetings, site visits, conference calls. I need you to manage my life so I can focus on strategy. Schedule everything. Filter everything. Handle the people I don't have time for. You'll coordinate with department heads, screen calls, manage correspondence. You'll know my business as well as I do. Better perhaps, since you'll see patterns I'm too close to notice. It was more access than I dreamed possible. Every meeting meant every contact. Every email meant every secret. Every calendar entry meant knowing where he'd be, when, and with whom. I can do that. I pulled the laptop closer, already scanning through the chaos. But this needs reorganization. You have meetings scheduled over lunch, calls during site visits, no buffer time between locations. You're setting yourself up for failure. Then fix it. He leaned back, arms crossed, challenging me. You have full authority to reschedule anything except the Meridian deal closing on Friday. That's non-negotiable. I spent the next hour rebuilding his calendar while he worked through emails. The silence was surprisingly comfortable. Occasionally he'd ask a question. Can you move this earlier, block out Thursday afternoon, did the architects send updated plans? And I'd answer while simultaneously researching everyone he was meeting with. Companies. Connections. I memorized them all. There. I turned the laptop back toward him. Reorganized by priority. Meetings clustered by location to minimize travel time. Lunch blocked off you need to eat. 30-minute buffers between major appointments. If something runs long, you won't cascade delays all day. He studied the screen, scrolling through. Then he looked at me with something approaching respect. You did this in an hour. Your previous assistant system was inefficient. No offense to her. None taken. She's why I needed someone better. He closed the laptop. All right, Eleanor Hartley. Let's see how you handle the deep end. We have a site inspection at 9. The Hudson Yards project. Mixed-use development, residential and commercial. 53 stories. The contractors are behind schedule and over budget. I'm going to eviscerate the project manager. Your job is to take notes and learn how I handle problems. Should I bring anything? Hard hat. Steel-toed boots if you have them. And a strong stomach. Construction sites aren't delicate. My brother died on a construction site. The words nearly escaped before I caught them. But Eleanor, the grieving fiancée, wouldn't make that connection. She'd just nod and follow orders. I'll manage, was all I said. The Hudson Yards site was controlled chaos. Steel framework reached toward the sky like a skeleton. Workers swarmed across scaffolding. The air smelled like concrete dust and welding. Hard hats everywhere. Yellow for workers, white for supervisors, red for safety inspectors. Adrian wore black. Of course he did. The project manager, a thick-necked man named Donnelly, met us at the site office. Sweat already stained his collar despite the November chill. Mr. Blackwell. We weren't expecting you until Wednesday. That's why I came today. Adrian's voice could have cut glass. Walk me through the delays, Donnelly. And don't insult my intelligence by blaming weather. We spent 2 hours touring the site. Adrian asked questions that proved he understood construction better than most engineers. Load-bearing calculations. Material grade specifications. OSHA compliance. Every answer Donnelly gave revealed another failure in project management. I took notes on everything. But what I really documented were the safety violations. Scaffolding without proper railings. Workers without fall protection. Electrical systems exposed in high-traffic areas. A dozen OSHA violations in plain sight. The kind of shortcuts that save time and money. The kind that killed people. The residential floors are 3 weeks behind. Donnelly wiped his forehead. Supply chain issues. I don't pay you to make excuses. I pay you to solve problems. Adrian's tone was surgical. You have 2 weeks to get back on schedule. If you can't do that, I'll find someone who can. Mr. Blackwell, with all respect, the timeline you set was already aggressive. Then work faster. Hire more crews. I don't care how you do it, just do it. This project is already eating into my margins. I won't tolerate further delays. I watched Donnelly's face. Saw the calculation happen. Faster meant less safe. More crews meant less experienced workers. Aggressive timelines meant cutting corners. Meant more Michaels. "We'll make it work," Donnelly said finally. Defeat in every syllable. "See that you do." Adrian turned away, dismissing him. To me. "You were quiet. Observations." We'd moved out of earshot. I chose my words carefully. Donnelly's not incompetent, but he's overwhelmed. The delays aren't entirely his fault. Your timeline didn't account for permit processing or material lead times. You're asking him to perform miracles and threatening him when physics won't cooperate. Adrian stopped walking. Turned to face me fully. "You think I'm being unreasonable. I think you're being Adrian Blackwell. Which means you expect the impossible and usually get it because people are too afraid to tell you no." I met his stare. But fear doesn't make construction go faster. It just makes people desperate enough to take risks they shouldn't. Such as, did you notice the scaffolding on the north face? No toe boards. The electrical panels on floor 32. Uncovered. Workers on the top floors. Half of them aren't wearing harnesses. I pulled out my phone, showed him the photos I'd taken. These are violations that could result in serious injury or death. Donnelly's rushing to meet your deadline, and safety is the first casualty. His expression went cold. "You documented this. That's my job now, isn't it? To see what you don't have time to notice." For a long moment he said nothing. Just studied me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Then he pulled out his own phone, dialed. "Donnelly. Adrian Blackwell. Shut down the site effective immediately. Don't argue. OSHA inspection, voluntary, happens tomorrow morning. Nothing resumes until every violation is corrected and documented. I don't care if it takes a week." He listened to whatever protest was happening on the other end. "Because I don't build death traps. Fix it. And Donnelly, thank my assistant. She just saved your ass and possibly some lives." He ended the call. Looked at me. Satisfied. I should have been. This was more than I'd expected. Actual accountability, actual concern for worker safety. But all I could think was, where was this man 3 years ago? Where was this conscience when my brother was crushed under falling concrete because someone decided permits could wait? "It's a start," I said carefully. "A start." He laughed, that sound without humor again. "You're never satisfied, are you? I just shut down a multi-million-dollar project because you showed me safety violations. And you call it a start? Because one inspection doesn't change a pattern. How many other sites are running with similar violations? How many other Donnellys are cutting corners to meet your impossible deadlines?" I stepped closer, let him see the fire I usually kept banked. "You asked me to be honest. Here's honesty. Your business model is built on speed at any cost. Today you hit pause because I was here to point out the bodies before they fell. What about tomorrow? What about the sites I'm not visiting?" His jaw tightened. "You think I'm responsible for every accident on every construction site in New York? I think you set the tone. You create the pressure. And when something goes wrong, you have lawyers and insurance to shield you from consequences." My voice stayed level. Professional. But underneath was 3 years of rage. "I think you've never had to watch someone you love die because a building came down 3 days early." The words hung between us. Too raw. Too personal. Eleanor, the professional assistant, shouldn't care this much. Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Your fiancé. The construction accident. Is that what this is about?" Gone too far. Needed to walk it back. "Partially." I looked away, let my voice crack slightly. "Sorry. That was unprofessional. You're right. You can't be responsible for every site accident in the city. Seeing those violations brought it back. Michael's site had violations too. Everybody knew. Nobody stopped it." His hand touched my shoulder. Brief. Awkward. "I'm sorry. Truly. But Eleanor, you can't save everyone by proxy. Not every construction site is the one that killed him. I know. I forced myself to meet his eyes. To look vulnerable instead of vengeful. I know. It's just hard sometimes. Then use it. His voice gentled. Use that anger. That need to protect people. Make me better. You said I need someone who isn't afraid to tell me when I'm being an arrogant bastard. So do it. Hold me accountable. Maybe you're right. Maybe I have been too focused on speed over safety. Show me where. Help me fix it. This was manipulation. Had to be. Adrian Blackwell didn't suddenly grow a conscience because his new assistant called him out. He was testing me. Seeing if I'd push further or back down. Or maybe, dangerous thought, maybe he was lonely enough, isolated enough by his own power, that having someone challenge him felt like oxygen. All right, I said. But you're not going to like it. I rarely like things that are good for me. He smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from him. It transformed his face, made him look younger. Almost human. Come on. I'll buy you lunch. Consider it an apology for the emotional ambush of your first morning. We ate at a bistro 3 blocks from his office. He ordered salmon. I ordered pasta. We talked about logistics, which meetings I should attend, which I could handle alone, how he preferred his correspondence formatted. Professional. But underneath something had shifted. He'd listened to me. Actually listened. Changed course based on my input. Trusted my judgment enough to shut down a project mid-construction. That wasn't in my plan. I'd expected resistance. Expected to have to manipulate and maneuver and slowly accumulate leverage. Instead, he'd handed me influence on day one. It should have made revenge easier. Instead, it made it more complicated. Because the man sitting across from me, explaining his vision for sustainable development and affordable housing initiatives, didn't sound like a monster. He sounded like someone who genuinely wanted to build something that mattered. But monsters could be charming. That's what made them dangerous. And I wouldn't forget, that 3 years ago this same man had valued speed over safety and Michael had paid the price. You're quiet again, Adrian observed. What are you thinking? That I'm going to destroy you? That every kindness you show me is another nail in your coffin? That I hate how human you seem because it would be so much easier if you were simply evil? That this is going to be interesting, I said instead. Interesting. He studied me over his wine glass. That's one word for it. I think dangerous might be more accurate. Dangerous how? You challenge me. You're not impressed by the money or the power. You see through the armor to the actual person underneath. He set down his glass. That's rare, intoxicating, and absolutely dangerous for both of us. My pulse quickened. This was too much, too fast. I needed him to trust me, yes. To rely on me. But attraction complicated everything. Made manipulation harder when lines blurred. Mr. Blackwell. Adrian. We agreed. Adrian. His name still tasted wrong. I'm your assistant. There are boundaries. That I have no intention of crossing, he finished. I'm not that kind of employer, Eleanor. I'm simply observing that you're not like anyone else in my orbit. That makes you valuable. Also potentially dangerous. I haven't decided which yet. Both, probably. I forced a smile. I tend to be complicated. Good. I'm bored with simple. We returned to the office. I spent the afternoon learning the systems. Email protocols, filing structures, contact databases. Everything organized with the same brutal efficiency he brought to construction. Everything designed to maximize his time and minimize friction. Everything giving me access to years of correspondence, contracts, deals. I found it buried in a folder labeled Hudson Yards, Preliminary. An email chain from 3 years ago. Before the project broke ground. Before Michael died. Adrian timeline. Donnelly. Permits processing. 3 weeks minimum. Adrian. Unacceptable. Start demo now. We'll get permits while we work. Donnelly. That's technically illegal. Adrian. It's expedient. I'm not interested in technically. I'm interested in results. Demo starts Monday. Make it happen. There it was. Black and white. Proof that he'd ordered illegal work. That he'd prioritized speed over safety, profit over protocol. That when the building came down, it was because he couldn't be bothered to wait for permits. My hands shook as I photographed the email chain. Saved it to 3 separate encrypted cloud accounts. This was evidence. Not just for my private revenge, but for actual legal consequences. Criminal charges. Civil liability. This could destroy him. Eleanor. Did you finish the quarterly reports? Closed the file quickly. Steadied my breathing. Almost. Another hour. Adrian appeared in the doorway of his office. Loosened his tie. Exhaustion showing at the edges despite his control. Don't stay too late. I need you sharp tomorrow. Back-to-back meetings with investors. I'll be ready. He studied me for a moment longer. You did well today. The safety call, that took courage. Thank you. Thank you for shutting down one site while a dozen others still cut corners. Thank you for having a conscience when it's convenient but not when it actually costs you something. Just doing my job, I said. After he left, I sat in the silence of his office. Manhattan glittered below. 47 active projects. Thousands of workers. And somewhere in those files was evidence of how many times Adrian Blackwell had chosen profit over safety. How many other Michaels had there been? Pulled out my phone. Scrolled to a contact I hadn't used in months. Type quickly. Min. Full access. This is going to work. The response came immediately. Be careful. Men like Blackwell are dangerous when cornered. I smiled at the screen. Bitter. Certain. Am I? Chapter 2. The accident that wasn't. 3 weeks into my new position, I'd mapped Adrian Blackwell's life with surgical precision. He woke at 5. Gym by 5:30, same routine, 30 minutes cardio, 30 minutes weights. Shower at 6:20. Coffee at 6:30, always black, always scalding. Office by 7 at the latest. Meetings stacked like Jenga blocks until 8 or 9 at night. Home by 10 if he was lucky. Asleep by 11. No friends. No hobbies. No life beyond the empire he'd built from his father's legacy and his own ruthless ambition. It should have made him easier to hate. Instead, it made him easier to understand. Loneliness looked the same whether you were powerful or powerless. Whether you chose isolation or had it forced upon you. I'd spent those 3 weeks doing my job flawlessly while collecting evidence. Every email, every contract, every questionable decision documented and encrypted. I had enough material now to bury him legally. But legal wasn't enough. Legal meant lawyers and appeals and settlements with no admission of guilt. I wanted him to feel what I'd felt. The moment of realization. The understanding that someone you trusted had destroyed you. The helplessness of watching everything collapse. For that, I needed to be indispensable first. Eleanor, conference room in 5. Adrian's voice crackled through the intercom. Meridian investors are early. I grabbed my tablet and the presentation materials, checked my appearance in the bathroom mirror. Charcoal dress, simple jewelry, hair smooth. Professional armor firmly in place. The Meridian project was Adrian's crown jewel, a mixed-use development in Tribeca that would redefine luxury urban living. 200 million in investor capital. His reputation riding on every detail. The conference room held 6 men in expensive suits and 1 woman who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. I recognized them from my research. Venture capitalists, real estate moguls, old money looking for new returns. Gentleman Patricia. Adrian's smile was all charm and confidence. Thank you for coming. I think you'll be impressed with our progress. I set up the presentation while Adrian worked the room. Small talk about market conditions, interest rates, their children's prep schools. The language of wealth I'd learned to speak fluently over 3 years of invisible observation. Eleanor will walk you through the updated financials. Adrian gestured to me. She's been instrumental in optimizing our timeline and budget allocations. I'd practiced this presentation a dozen times. Numbers, projections, risk assessments. I spoke clearly, answered questions with precision, watched their expressions shift from skeptical to interested. The commercial space is already 70% pre-leased, I explained, clicking through architectural renderings. Residential units are receiving offers above asking price. We're projecting 32% ROI over 5 years, 48% over 10. What about construction delays? This from Marcus Webb, the oldest investor. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed. The kind of man who'd built his fortune on finding weaknesses in other people's plans. Your Hudson Yards project was 3 weeks behind last quarter. Adrian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but I jumped in before he could respond. We addressed those delays by implementing new safety protocols and project management oversight. Short-term slowdown, long-term risk mitigation. I'd rather deliver a month late with 0 accidents than on time with OSHA violations and potential liability. Webb studied me. Practical. I like that. Too many developers prioritize speed over sense. Eleanor keeps me honest. Adrian's tone was warm. Proud almost. She has a talent for seeing problems before they become disasters. The meeting continued for another hour. By the end, we'd secured verbal commitments for an additional $50 million in capital. As the investors filed out, Webb stopped beside me. Smart presentation, Ms. Hartley. You've got good instincts. He handed me his card. If you ever tire of working for Adrian, my firm is always looking for sharp analysts. Thank you, Mr. Webb. I'll keep that in mind. After they left, Adrian loosened his tie with visible relief. You were perfect. Did you see Webb's face when you addressed the safety concerns? That could have derailed everything. That's why you pay me. I gathered the presentation materials. Though technically you pay me significantly less than my performance today was worth. He laughed. Negotiating already. You've been here 3 weeks. And I just helped close a $50 million deal. Seems like good leverage for a conversation about compensation. Fair point. He moved to the window, looked out over Manhattan. Name your number. 20% increase. Plus performance bonuses tied to project milestones. 10%. Bonuses are negotiable. 15. And I want equity. He turned, eyebrows raised. Equity. You're thinking long-term. I'm thinking I'm making you a lot of money and taking on significant responsibility. I should participate in the upside. I held his gaze. Unless you think I'm not worth it. I think you're worth considerably more than you're asking. He moved closer, that predatory focus I'd learned to recognize. But I'm curious. Why equity instead of straight salary? Because equity means access to shareholder information. Board meeting minutes. The real financial picture, not just what you choose to show me. Because I believe in what we're building. I want skin in the game. Smiled. Also because if I'm going to work this hard, I'd like to retire before I'm 60. Ambitious. I like that. He extended his hand. 15% raise. 2% equity vesting over 4 years. Quarterly bonuses based on project performance. Deal. I shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm. Lingered a fraction too long. Deal. Good. Now let's celebrate. Dinner my treat. There's a new place in the village I've been wanting to try. Warning bells rang. This was crossing a line from professional to personal. But I needed him to trust me completely. Needed him to see me as more than just competent staff. As long as we can discuss the Riverside project over appetizers, I said. I have concerns about the waterfront permits. Always working. But he smiled. Fine. Business dinner. I'll have my driver meet us downstairs at 7. The restaurant was intimate. Low lighting, exposed brick, tables spaced far enough apart for private conversation. Not the kind of place you took your assistant for a business dinner unless business wasn't really the agenda. I should have been more careful. Should have insisted on somewhere public, bright, professional. But I was curious about what Adrian Blackwell looked like when he wasn't being the CEO. whether the mask ever slipped completely. The permits are stalled because of environmental concerns, I said after we'd ordered. Keeping it professional. If the survey found protected wetlands near the construction zone, we need to either redesign or wait for federal clearance. How long for clearance? 6 to 8 months. Maybe longer. He swore softly. That destroys the timeline. The investors will lose confidence. Or we propose a redesign that incorporates the wetlands as a feature. Ecological responsibility is marketable. Premium waterfront units with protected nature preserve access. We could charge 20% more per square foot. He studied me over his wine glass. You've already worked out the numbers, haven't you? Preliminary analysis, yes. I can have detailed proposals by Monday. You're remarkable. He said it quietly, simply, like stating fact. 3 weeks and you've already restructured how I think about problems. How I approach development. I built this company on aggressive tactics and brute force. You're showing me there are other ways. Smarter ways. Guilt twisted in my stomach. He was crediting me with making him better while I was systematically documenting everything I'd need to destroy him. You're not as ruthless as you think, I said. The safety protocols, the environmental concerns, you care about doing things right. You just needed someone to remind you that caring isn't weakness. My father would disagree. He built Blackwell Industries on the principle that sentiment is liability. Be harder than your competition. Want it more. Take what others aren't willing to claim. Adrian's expression darkened. He died at his desk at 63. Heart attack. Alone except for the work that killed him. I inherited an empire and no idea how to be anything except what he'd trained me to be. This was more than I'd expected. More than he'd revealed to anyone, judging by the surprise in his own voice. Like he hadn't meant to be this honest. You don't have to be your father's legacy, I said carefully. You can build something different. Something that matters beyond profit margins. Can I? Or have I already done too much damage to pivot now? He looked at me with something raw in his eyes. You mentioned violations at your fiancé's site. That they were ignored. How many times have I been the person ignoring warnings because I couldn't be bothered to slow down? Every instinct screamed to twist the knife. To confirm his guilt. Make him confront what he'd done to Michael. But Eleanor, the assistant, wouldn't know details. Wouldn't have proof. She'd offer comfort, not condemnation. You're asking the right questions now, I said instead. That's what matters. You can't change the past, but you can change how you operate going forward. Redemption through better business practices. His laugh was bitter. I'm not sure it works that way, Eleanor. Maybe not. But it's better than not trying at all. The food arrived. Scallops for me, steak for him. We ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Adrian set down his fork, expression shifting to something more focused. Tell me about him. Your fiancé. If you're comfortable. I wasn't. Eleanor might be, but I wasn't. Still, I needed to maintain the cover. Michael was kind. Genuinely kind, not performatively. He saw the best in everyone, even when they didn't deserve it. True, all true. Just different Michael. He wanted to build things that would outlast him. Leave the world better than he found it. He sounds like someone I would have liked. You killed him, I thought. You killed him and never knew his name. He would have liked you too, I said. The lie tasted like ash. He believed people could change. Become better versions of themselves. I hope he was right. Adrian reached across the table, covered my hand with his. And I hope you know how sorry I am. That you had to lose someone like that. That the world lost someone like that. His hand was warm. His touch gentle. His eyes held genuine sympathy. And I hated him for it. Hated that he could be kind and cruel simultaneously. That he could mourn a stranger while being responsible for creating strangers to mourn. I pulled my hand back carefully. Thank you. That means a lot. The rest of dinner passed in safer conversation. Projects, timelines, industry gossip. By the time his driver dropped me at my apartment in Murray Hill, it was past 11. I climbed 3 flights to my studio. 400 square feet of carefully maintained anonymity. Nothing personal on the walls. Nothing that revealed Eleanor Hartley as anything other than a hard-working transplant making her way in an expensive city. Only after I'd locked the door, drawn the blinds, and activated the white noise machine did I allow myself to break. Pulled out my laptop, opened the encrypted files, stared at the evidence I'd collected, emails proving negligence, contracts with illegal clauses, testimony from workers who'd been pressured to cut corners. Enough to destroy him. More than enough. But tonight he'd looked at me with something like trust, like hope that he could be better than his worst impulses. And some traitorous part of me wanted to believe redemption was possible. I shut the laptop hard enough to hurt. Redemption didn't bring Michael back. Didn't undo 3 years of grief. Didn't account for all the other lives damaged by Adrian's ambition. He didn't get to be saved just because he was lonely and self-aware enough to question his choices. Monsters didn't earn forgiveness by having moments of humanity. My phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. Phase 2 ready when you are. Equipment arrives Tuesday. You'll need access to his vehicle. I stared at the message. Phase 2. The plan I'd agreed to months ago when revenge seemed simple. When Adrian Blackwell was just a name and a target. Not a person who made me laugh and trusted my judgment and looked at me like I mattered. The plan that would make him finally understand what he'd taken from me. I typed back, Tuesday works. I'll handle access. Another message. Are you having doubts? Was I? 3 weeks of working closely with him. Seeing beyond the ruthless CEO to the isolated man underneath. 3 weeks of him listening to me, valuing me, changing because I asked him to. 3 weeks of almost forgetting why I was really there. No doubts, I type. He killed my brother. This doesn't change because he's charismatic. But stay focused. Men like Blackwell are experts at manipulation. Don't let him make you forget what he cost you. I deleted the conversation. Encrypted the laptop. Lay in bed staring at ceiling cracks and trying to convince myself I was still certain. Tuesday morning arrived with freezing rain. The kind of weather that made Manhattan miserable. Not quite snow, not quite rain, just cold misery falling from gray skies. Adrian's morning meeting with the architects ran long. I used the time to access the parking garage where he kept his Tesla. Security recognized me now. Mr. Blackwell's right hand, the woman who made his life run smoothly. They waved me through without question. The device was small. Sophisticated. Exactly what I'd been promised. A tracker with listening capability, magnetically attached under the rear wheel well. Undetectable unless you were specifically looking for it. Active for 6 months before the battery died. I was under his car for less than 2 minutes. Placed the device. Checked twice to ensure it was secure. Stood and brushed dirt from my coat just as my phone rang. Adrian's name on the screen. Eleanor, where are you? The architects just left and I need you to review the Tribeca revisions. Parking garage. Kept my voice steady. I thought I saw something leaking from your car yesterday. Wanted to check before you drove anywhere. And false alarm. Just road spray from the rain. Your car's fine. You didn't have to do that. We have mechanics who charge $200 an hour to tell you nothing's wrong. I saved you money. I headed for the elevator, pulse still elevated from the lie. Be up in 3 minutes. Bring coffee. The meeting was torture. I stopped at the break room, prepared his coffee exactly how he liked it. My hands didn't shake. My expression showed nothing but professional competence. I just bugged Adrian Blackwell's car and he had no idea. Phase 2 was active. The rest of the day passed normally. Review meetings, contractor calls, investor updates. Adrian in his element, commanding, decisive, brilliant. Every bit the man who'd tripled his father's company in less than a decade. At 7, as I was packing up to leave, his office door opened. Eleanor. Last thing, I need you to come to a charity gala Friday night. The Riverside Foundation benefit. I usually go alone, but I need someone there who can actually hold intelligent conversations with the donors. Plus, you've already proven you can work a room. A gala meant evening wear. Public appearance. Being seen at his side by Manhattan's elite. Another step deeper into his world. I don't really have anything appropriate for. Expense it. Whatever you need. Hair, makeup, dress, the works. Consider it part of the job. He smiled. Though between us, I'm tired of attending these things alone. It'll be nice to have company who doesn't bore me to death. That's what you pay me for. Preventing boredom through intelligent conversation. Among other things. His expression shifted. You've become more than an assistant, Eleanor. You know that, right? You're my partner in this. The person I trust to tell me when I'm being an idiot. That's not a typical employee relationship. It wasn't. And that was dangerous for both of us, though he didn't know how dangerous yet. I'm aware the relationship is evolving, I said carefully. I just want to make sure we maintain appropriate boundaries. Of course. Professional boundaries. Absolutely. But something in his voice suggested boundaries were the last thing on his mind. Friday then. I'll pick you up at 7. After he left, I sat in the silent office and tried to remember why I was doing this. What the end goal looked like beyond watching his empire burn. The tracker I'd planted would document his movements. Conversations. Meetings with people he'd never mention officially. Over weeks and months, it would build a complete picture of Blackwell Industries' dealings, legal and otherwise. But it would also document Adrian. The real Adrian when he thought no one was listening. Whether that confirmed him as the monster I needed him to be or complicated my revenge further remained to be seen. My phone buzzed. The tracker was active. Already transmitting. I had full audio access through an encrypted app that couldn't be traced back to me. Clicked open the feed. Adrian's voice came through clearly. Christ, Marcus, I know the timeline is aggressive. No, I won't compromise on safety protocols. Eleanor made that abundantly clear. Yes, she's having an impact. More than I expected. I don't know what I'd do without her at this point, honestly. I shut off the feed. Hearing him talk about me when he thought I couldn't hear felt like a violation somehow. Which was absurd since that was the entire point. But nothing about this was going as planned. I was supposed to stay cold. Professional. Instead, I was buying evening gowns and attending galas and letting him treat me like a partner instead of an employee. Instead, I was starting to care whether he actually could change. Whether redemption was possible. Whether revenge would feel like justice or just more loss. My brother's face flashed through my mind. 23. Dead because Adrian Blackwell couldn't wait 3 weeks for permits. Well, I couldn't afford doubt. Couldn't afford to see Adrian as anything except what he was. The man responsible for Michael's death. The man who needed to pay for that. Even if paying meant destroying something that might have become real between us. Even if it meant destroying myself in the process. Revenge had always been the plan. That hadn't changed. What had changed was me. And I didn't know yet if that was a problem or an opportunity. Chapter 3. The body remembers. The dress was midnight blue silk. It cost $3,000 and fit like it had been designed specifically to destroy me. Or rather, to help me destroy Adrian Blackwell while looking like I belonged in his world. I stood in front of my apartment mirror Friday evening, barely recognizing the woman staring back. Hair swept up in an elegant twist. Makeup applied by a professional who'd made my green eyes look luminous and dangerous. Heels that added 3 inches and made my legs look endless. Eleanor Hartley, household manager turned executive assistant turned. What? Companion. Partner. Weapon disguised as a woman at a charity gala. My phone buzzed. Adrian downstairs. Take your time. You're worth waiting for. I grabbed the clutch that matched the dress. Empty except for lipstick, phone, and a conscience I was trying very hard to ignore, and headed down. The car was a Bentley, not the Tesla. Adrian stood beside it in a tuxedo that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He looked like old money and new power wrapped in elegant menace. When he saw me, his expression shifted into something I couldn't quite name. Eleanor. My name like a prayer. You're stunning. You clean up well yourself. I let him help me into the car, hyper-aware of his hand on my lower back. The heat of his touch through silk. I'm underdressed compared to you. He settled beside me as the driver pulled into traffic. That dress should be illegal. It's Valentino. I expensed it like you told me to. Worth every penny. His eyes traced over me with appreciation that felt almost tangible. Though I'm questioning the wisdom of bringing you to this event. Every man there is going to spend the evening trying to steal you away from me. Good thing I don't steal easily. No, you don't. Something in his tone suggested layers of meaning. You're loyal. That's rare in my world. Valuable. Guilt twisted sharp. Loyal. If he only knew. The Riverside Foundation Gala was held at the plaza. 'Cause of course it was. Old money and new wealth mixing in gilded ballrooms while waiters circulated with champagne and canapés worth more than most people's grocery budget. Adrian's hand found the small of my back again as we entered. Possessive without being controlling. Like he was proud to have me beside him rather than ashamed of bringing staff to a high society event. Stick close, he murmured. These people are sharks. They'll smell blood if you show weakness. I grew up in Dublin. I know sharks when I see them. He laughed. Then we'll make a good team. You watch my six, I'll watch yours. The evening became a performance. Adrian introducing me to investors, developers, old family connections. Me charming them with the perfect blend of intelligence and deference. Not threatening their egos, but impressive enough to be memorable. This is Eleanor Hartley, my executive assistant. She's the reason Blackwell Industries has been so successful lately. Eleanor's done wonders for our safety protocols and environmental compliance. I don't make a major decision without running it past Eleanor first. Each introduction, each compliment, each moment of public acknowledgement drove home how thoroughly I'd infiltrated his life. How much he trusted me, relied on me, valued me. How much I was betraying him with every smile and laugh and moment of pretending this was real. You're thinking too hard. Adrian appeared at my elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. I can see the wheels turning. Just observing. These people have money older than most countries and they're still obsessed with having more. Says the woman wearing a $3,000 dress. Which you told me to expense. I'm practical, not materialistic. I sipped the champagne, Dom Perignon because of course. Though I admit there's something intoxicating about this world. The power, the excess, the feeling that normal rules don't apply. They don't. Not really. He moved closer, voice dropping. That's the secret no one tells you. Enough money buys you immunity from almost everything. Different laws for different classes. You sound cynical. I sound experienced. His eyes found mine. But lately I've been wondering if maybe that's the problem. If I've been operating in a moral vacuum for so long that I've forgotten what actual accountability looks like. What changed? You did. Simple. Direct. Devastating. You walk into a construction site and point out violations everyone else ignores. You redesign projects to protect wetlands instead of destroying them. You make me question whether profit is worth the cost. He touched my face, just fingertips along my jawline. You make me want to be better than I am. This was too much. Too honest. The tracker I'd planted in his car had been feeding me information for 3 days. I knew he'd been telling investors I was changing how he approached development. Knew he'd cancelled 2 projects because environmental assessments came back negative. Knew he was restructuring timelines across the board to prioritize safety. I was watching him transform in real time. Become someone who might actually deserve redemption. And I was still planning to destroy him. Adrian. I started, not knowing how to finish. Dance with me. He took my champagne glass, set it on a passing waiter's tray. I've been watching you all evening and I'm tired of sharing you with people who don't appreciate what they're seeing. The orchestra was playing something classical, elegant, the kind of music that belonged in marble halls with crystal chandeliers. Adrian led me onto the dance floor with the confidence of someone who'd been trained in ballroom dancing since childhood. His hand settled on my waist, mine on his shoulder. We moved together like we'd done this 1,000 times before instead of never. "You're a good dancer," I said, needing to fill the silence, needing to not think about how perfectly we fit together. 8 years of cotillion lessons. My mother insisted. He pulled me fractionally closer. She died when I was 16. Cancer. My father threw himself into work, and I threw myself into becoming exactly what he wanted. We grieved separately and never quite found our way back to each other. I'm sorry. That must have been lonely. It was. I built an empire and surrounded myself with people, but somehow remained completely alone. His eyes held mine. Until recently. "Adrian, you need to understand something." "I know." He cut me off gently. "I know this is complicated. You're my employee. There are power dynamics and professional boundaries and a dozen reasons this shouldn't happen. But Eleanor, I haven't felt this alive in years. You challenge me, inspire me, make me laugh, make me think. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I just need you to know that this, us, it's not just professional for me anymore." Every alarm bell I possessed was screaming. This was exactly what I needed for revenge. His complete emotional investment. The deeper he fell, the more devastating his destruction would be. But standing in his arms, feeling the warmth of his body against mine, seeing genuine vulnerability in those gray eyes, I couldn't pretend this was purely strategic anymore. Some part of me wanted this. Wanted him. Wanted the fantasy of being someone who belonged in silk dresses and charity galas. Who mattered to a powerful man for reasons beyond revenge. "I need air," I said abruptly. "It's warm in here." Concern flickered across his face. "Of course. The terrace. Alone. Please. Just 5 minutes to clear my head." He released me reluctantly. "I'll be right here when you're ready." I fled through French doors onto a terrace overlooking Central Park. November cold hit like a slap, but I welcomed it. Needed it to shock some sense back into me. Having second thoughts. Spun. A woman stood in the shadows, late 40s, elegant in black, with sharp eyes that saw too much. I didn't recognize her from Adrian's investor circle. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "Not yet. But I know you, Eleanor Hartley. Or should I say Eleanor Brennan?" As flooded my veins. Brennan was my real surname. The one I'd buried 3 years ago along with everything else. "I don't know what you're talking about. Your brother Michael died 3 years ago in a construction accident at one of Blackwell's illegal demolition sites. You spent the next 3 years creating a new identity, infiltrating Adrian's household, and working your way into his inner circle." She moved closer. "You planted a tracker on his car 4 days ago. You've been collecting evidence of illegal business practices. And if I had to guess, you're currently questioning whether revenge is worth it now that you're falling for him." My hand shook. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone with similar interests. My daughter worked for Blackwell Industries. Bright, ambitious, ethical. She discovered that Adrian was bribing city officials to fast-track permits. When she threatened to go public, she had an unfortunate accident. Fell from her apartment balcony. The police ruled it suicide despite evidence of forced entry. Adrian wouldn't kill someone." The woman's smile was bitter. "Maybe not personally. But he has people who handle problems. People who ensure witnesses don't testify and whistleblowers don't blow whistles. Your brother's death was negligence. My daughter's was murder. And Adrian Blackwell is responsible for both." I couldn't breathe. "You're lying." "Am I?" Check the tracker recordings from Wednesday night. His meeting with his head of security. They discussed managing the witness problem. For the Meridian project, 3 workers saw illegal materials being used. 2 have already accepted payouts to disappear. The third is being handled. She handed me a business card. My name is Catherine Winters. I've spent 2 years building a case against Adrian Blackwell, but I need someone on the inside. Someone with access to files I can't reach. Someone he trusts completely. Her eyes bored into mine. That's you, Eleanor. You can get what I need to put him away for good. To get justice for Michael, for my daughter, for everyone he's destroyed. Why should I trust you? Because we want the same thing. Because you're in too deep now and you need help. Because falling for your target doesn't change what he's done. Catherine's voice softened. I've been watching you, Eleanor. Watching him manipulate you with vulnerability and charm. That's what he does. Makes you believe he's redeemable. Makes you think you can save him. But monsters don't get saved. They get stopped. The French doors opened. Adrian appeared, concern evident. Eleanor. Are you all right? Catherine melted back into shadows. Disappeared like she'd never been there at all. I'm fine. My voice sounded distant. Hello. Just needed some air. You're shaking. He shrugged off his tuxedo jacket, draped it over my shoulders. What happened? Did someone say something to you? Someone told me you might be a murderer. That your business practices include eliminating witnesses. That everything I've observed over the past month has been performance designed to manipulate me. Nothing happened. Just overwhelmed. These events are a lot. He studied my face, reading something I couldn't hide. Let me take you home. We've made enough appearances. I've networked enough for one evening. You don't have to leave early because of me. Eleanor. He cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. I'd rather spend 5 minutes alone with you than 5 hours working a room full of people I don't particularly like. Let's go home. Like we shared one. Like this was real. The car ride passed in silence. Adrian's hand found mine, threaded our fingers together. The gesture should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like chains. When we pulled up to my building, he walked me to the door despite the cold. Thank you for tonight, he said. You were perfect. Though I suspect you're perfect at most things. I'm really not. I'm actually quite skilled at making mistakes. Like falling for the man I'm supposed to destroy. Like questioning everything I've spent 3 years planning. Then you hide them well. He hesitated, then leaned in and kissed my forehead. Gentle. Almost reverent. Get some rest. I'll see you Monday. I watched him return to the car. Watched the Bentley pull away. Then I climbed the stairs to my apartment with Catherine Winters' card burning a hole in my clutch. Inside, I activated the tracker app. Scrolled back to Wednesday night. Found the recording Catherine had mentioned. Adrian's voice, crisp and businesslike. What's the status on the Meridian witnesses? A rougher voice, his head of security probably. 2 took the money. 3rd one's being difficult. Wants to talk to OSHA. How difficult? Nothing we can't handle. Give me 48 hours. I don't want details. Just results. This project can't afford scrutiny. Understood, boss. It'll be taken care of. The recording ended. Played it 3 more times. Trying to find innocent interpretation. Trying to convince myself handled meant something other than what it obviously meant. But I couldn't. Because the body remembers even when the mind wants to forget. And my body was screaming that I'd just heard a man order a witness silenced. That the vulnerable, lonely, reforming Adrian Blackwell was a mask. That Catherine Winters was right. I'd been manipulated by someone who made me believe redemption was possible. I opened my laptop. Started typing. Michael. I almost forgot why I was doing this. Almost let him convince me he was changing. But I heard the recording. I know what he is now. What he's always been. I'm sorry I doubted. Sorry I let him make me weak. That ends now. He wants to see me as a partner. Perfect. Partners have access to everything. And I'm going to use that access to burn his entire empire to the ground. I promise you by the time I'm done, Adrian Blackwell will know exactly what it feels like to lose everything. Your sister, Eleanor. I saved the file. Encrypted it. Then I pulled out Catherine Winter's card and sent a text to the number listed. Min. Tell me what you need. The response came within minutes. Financial records. Bribe documentation. Communications with city officials. Everything. I'll send you a secure upload link. And Eleanor, be careful. He's more dangerous than you think. I knew that now. I'd seen firsthand how Adrian Blackwell operated. The charm, the vulnerability, the promises of change. All of it designed to blind people to what he really was. A man who eliminated problems. Who destroyed anyone in his path. Who'd killed my brother and Catherine's daughter and God knew how many others. I'd spent a month falling for a lie. That ended tonight. My phone rang. Adrian's name on the screen. Did I wake you? His voice was warm. Intimate. No. Can't sleep. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. He paused. I wanted to hear your voice. Tonight felt significant somehow. Like something shifted between us. I know that's probably inappropriate to say given our professional relationship, but I'm tired of pretending I don't feel what I feel. Manipulation. This is manipulation. He's playing you. Adrian. You don't have to respond. I just needed you to know that you matter to me. More than I probably should admit. Another pause. Get some rest, Eleanor. Sweet dreams. He ended the call before I could respond. I sat in the darkness of my apartment, torn between the man I wanted him to be and the man the evidence proved he was. Between the gentle forehead kiss and the recording of him ordering a witness handled. The body remembers. And mine remembered Michael's funeral. The casket that couldn't be opened because the injuries were too severe. My mother crying herself to sleep every night for 6 months before the grief finally killed her too. The body remembers. And mine remembered Adrian's hand in mine on the dance floor. His jacket around my shoulders. The way he looked at me like I was something precious. But memories lie. Hearts lie. Only evidence told the truth. And the truth was that Adrian Blackwell needed to pay for what he'd done. Even if destroying him destroyed me too. Especially if it destroyed me too. Because that would mean I'd been willing to sacrifice everything for justice. That Michael's death hadn't been meaningless. That love, or whatever I was feeling, didn't excuse murder. I opened the secure upload link Catherine had sent. Started compiling files. Financial records showing irregular payments. Emails with suspiciously vague language. Calendar entries that aligned with permits being approved impossibly fast. I worked through the night. By dawn, I'd uploaded everything Catherine requested and more. By dawn, I'd committed fully to the path of revenge. By dawn, I'd chosen justice over whatever Adrian and I might have become. The body remembers. And mine would remember this choice for the rest of my life. Chapter 4. Lessons in Power. Monday morning, I arrived at the office with Catherine Winter's words echoing in my head. He's more dangerous than you think. Adrian looked up from his computer as I entered. Smiled that devastating smile. Morning. Coffee's already brewing. How was your weekend? Productive. I'd spent it uploading evidence and researching witness protection procedures. Yours? Lonely. I kept reaching for my phone to text you, then remembering that you're entitled to days off. He stood, moved around his desk. Though I'll admit I missed having you around. You've become essential to my operations. And other things. The other things hung between us. Unspoken. Heavy with implication. I reviewed the Meridian witness statements like you asked. I pulled out my tablet, all business. There are some concerning discrepancies in the material certifications. We should probably address them before the inspection next week. His expression shifted. Became unreadable. What kind of discrepancies? 3 workers claim they were pressured to sign off on materials that didn't meet specifications. Substandard concrete, unapproved rebar suppliers. The kind of shortcuts that save money but compromise structural integrity. I met his eyes. The kind of shortcuts that get people killed. Who are these workers? Does it matter? If the allegations are true, it matters because I need to know if they're credible or if they're angling for payouts. His voice hardened. I've dealt with false accusations before. People see a successful company and decide it's easier to fabricate complaints than actually work. Or, I said carefully, they see actual violations and feel morally obligated to report them. You think I'd knowingly use substandard materials? After everything we've discussed about safety protocols. He moved closer, intensity radiating off him. Eleanor, I thought you knew me better than that. I know what you've shown me. That doesn't mean I know everything. I held my ground. These allegations are serious, Adrian. If there's even a possibility they're true, we need to investigate properly. Not make them disappear. Silence stretched. He studied me like I was a puzzle he was reassembling. You've heard something. Someone talked to you at the gala. He was too perceptive. I'd underestimated how well he could read people. Read me. A woman approached me on the terrace. She made accusations about how you handle problems. About witnesses who become inconvenient. Pause. She said her daughter used to work for you. That she died under suspicious circumstances after threatening to expose corruption. Catherine Winters. He said the name like a curse. Her daughter Elena worked in my compliance department 3 years ago. She was brilliant, thorough, and had a nervous breakdown when she discovered some paperwork irregularities. She jumped from her apartment balcony after months of psychiatric treatment. It was tragic and horrible and absolutely not my fault. She claims it was murder made to look like suicide. Catherine Winters is a grieving mother looking for someone to blame because accepting that her daughter was mentally ill is too painful. Adrian's voice was controlled, but I heard the edge underneath. Elena had been hospitalized twice for suicidal ideation before she ever worked for me. The police investigated thoroughly. There was no evidence of foul play. No forced entry. No signs of struggle. Just a desperately sick young woman who finally succeeded in ending her pain. Sounded reasonable. Compassionate even. But I'd heard the recording. Heard him discuss handling a witness problem. What about the Meridian witness? The one who won't take the payout. His eyes narrowed. How do you know about that? I manage your calendar, Adrian. I see the meetings. I hear the phone calls. The lie came smoothly. Your head of security mentioned it last week. Said someone was being difficult about signing the NDA. That's being handled through proper legal channels. Mediation, arbitration if necessary. Standard procedure for employment disputes. He touched my face, forcing me to meet his gaze. Eleanor, what is this really about? You've never questioned my integrity before. Did Catherine Winters say something that made you doubt me? And I found evidence that confirms those doubts. But I can't tell you that without revealing my real agenda. I don't want to be complicit in anything illegal or immoral, I said instead. You've given me significant responsibility. Access to sensitive information. If there are skeletons in closets, I need to know about them before they destroy both of us. There are no skeletons. Just business decisions that sometimes require difficult choices. He dropped his hand. I'm not perfect, Eleanor. I've cut corners, pushed boundaries, operated in gray areas where the law is ambiguous. But I have never deliberately harmed anyone. And I sure as hell never killed Elena Winters or ordered anyone else killed. The conviction in his voice was compelling. This was either truth or he was the best liar I'd ever encountered. Then prove it. Let me see the financial records for the Meridian project. The material certifications. The witness statements. Everything. I stepped closer. You said you trust me. That I'm your partner. So treat me like one. Show me I'm wrong to doubt you. You want transparency. Something dangerous flickered across his face. Fine. Full transparency. Starting now. But Eleanor, once you see inside the machine you don't get to unsee it. You're either all in or you're out. There's no middle ground in my world. I understand. Do you? He moved to his desk, unlocked a drawer, pulled out a file. This is what it looks like when you run a successful development company in a city where everything is political. Where permits require relationships. Where timelines depend on knowing which palms to grease and which inspectors have mortgages they can't quite afford. He handed me the file. I opened it, found what I expected. Records of payments to city officials. Campaign contributions that exceeded legal limits. Consulting fees to inspectors' family members. The architecture of corruption, documented and organized. This is bribery, I said flatly. This is how business works. You think my competitors aren't doing the same thing? You think buildings go up in Manhattan without money changing hands in ways that don't appear on official ledgers? He leaned against his desk. I'm not defending it. I'm explaining it. This is the price of doing business in a corrupt system. I can either play by the real rules or get crushed by people who do. Michael died because you cut corners. The words escaped before I could stop them. My fiancé died because someone prioritized speed over safety. And I won't participate in that kind of system. Your fiancé died in an accident. A terrible, preventable accident. But Eleanor, accidents happen in construction. Even with perfect safety protocols. Even when everyone follows every rule. His voice softened. I know you need someone to blame. I know grief looks for villains. But the world isn't that simple. Sometimes bad things happen and no one is at fault. He was wrong. Someone was at fault. But admitting I knew the truth meant admitting who I really was. What I was really doing there. Teach me, I said instead. If this is how your world works, teach me to navigate it. Show me the difference between necessary compromise and unacceptable corruption. Help me understand where the line is. Adrian studied me for a long moment. You're serious. You said I'm your partner. Partners need to understand the full picture. Even the ugly parts. I moved closer. I'm not naive, Adrian. I know the world is complicated. I just need to know that we're drawing lines somewhere. That there are things we won't do no matter how profitable or convenient. There are lines. He pulled me against him, arms circling my waist. And you're helping me redraw them in better places. Before you, I didn't question the system. I just operated within it. But you make me want to be better. Do better. Even when it's harder or more expensive. This close, I could feel his heartbeat. Smell his cologne. See the genuine emotion in his eyes. And God help me, part of me wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe redemption was possible. That people could change. That love, if that's what this was, could transform monsters into men. But Catherine Winter's daughter was dead. The Meridian witness was being handled. And somewhere in Adrian's files was evidence that my brother's death had been preventable. That permits had been deliberately ignored. That Adrian Blackwell had known the risks and accepted them because his timeline mattered more than worker safety. Teach me, I repeated. Show me your world. All of it. The power, the compromise, the impossible choices. Let me understand how you navigate the gray areas. You want to learn power. His voice dropped, intimate and dangerous. Real power isn't what people think. It's not shouting or violence or obvious displays of dominance. Real power is subtle. It's knowing which strings to pull. Which levers to push. How to make people want to give you what you need. Like what you're doing with me. The question slipped out. He smiled. Like what we're doing with each other. You think I haven't noticed how effectively you manage me? How you've restructured my priorities without me even realizing it was happening? That's power, Eleanor. You're already fluent in it. You just don't recognize the language yet. Then teach me the vocabulary. Over the next week, Adrian made good on his promise. He brought me to meetings I'd never attended before. Introduced me to people I'd only known by name. Showed me the mechanical workings of his empire. Not just the legitimate business but the shadows underneath. I met city councilmen who discussed permits over expensive dinners paid for with corporate cards. Union representatives who negotiated work stoppages that coincidentally ended after consulting fees were paid. Inspectors who found violations or didn't depending on their relationship with Blackwell Industries. I watched Adrian navigate these relationships with practiced ease. Never explicit. Never crude. Just subtle implications and understood agreements. Money and favors flowing through channels that would never show up on official audits. The key, he explained over coffee one morning, is maintaining deniability. Nothing is ever direct. Everything is understood. That's how you build an empire without leaving evidence. But he was leaving evidence. Every meeting I attended, I documented. Every name he mentioned, I researched. Every bank transfer, every consulting fee, every suspicious payment. I tracked it all and uploaded it to Catherine Winter's secure server. I was building a case that would destroy him, using his own trust as the weapon. Wednesday afternoon, he took me to a gun range. I know this seems random, he said as we stood in the shooting lane, but power includes knowing how to protect yourself. My world isn't always boardrooms and contracts. Sometimes it's dangerous. I need to know you can handle yourself. He showed me how to hold the Glock 19, how to aim, how to breathe through the recoil. His body pressed against mine from behind, hands guiding my grip. The instruction was practical, but the intimacy was unmistakable. Squeeze slowly. Don't pull. Let the shot surprise you. Fired. The target at the end of the range showed a hit just left of center. Good. Again. Focus on the target. Block everything else out. When you're in danger, hesitation kills. You need to act on instinct. We spent an hour there. By the end, I was hitting center mass consistently. Adrian looked at me with something like pride. You're a natural. Most people freeze the first time. You just adapted. I don't have the luxury of freezing. Not in your world. I set down the gun, removed the ear protection. Though I hope I never need to use this. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. He holstered his own weapon with practiced ease. That's how you survive in my business. Always have contingencies. Always be ready to protect what's yours. That night he took me to his penthouse for the first time. Not the office, his actual home. The space he kept separate from work. Private, personal, sacred. It was beautiful in its minimalism. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Furniture that looked expensive and uncomfortable. Art that probably cost more than most houses. Nothing soft. Nothing warm. Nothing that suggested anyone actually lived there. This is where you come to relax, I asked, taking in the sterile perfection. This is where I come to be alone. He poured whiskey, single malt, probably older than I was. Or where I came to be alone. Before you. Adrian. I know what you're going to say. That this is moving too fast. That we need to maintain boundaries. That you're not sure about any of this. He handed me a glass. But Eleanor, I haven't been this certain about anything in years. You've become essential to me. Not just professionally. Personally. And I hope you feel the same. I should have pulled back. Should have maintained distance. But standing in his private space, seeing genuine vulnerability in his eyes, I couldn't make myself retreat. I feel something, I admitted. I'm just not sure what it is yet. Or whether it's wise to pursue it. Wisdom is overrated. He set down his glass, moved closer. Sometimes you have to act on instinct instead of analysis. Trust what you feel rather than what you think. His hand cupped my face. Thumb brushing my lips. Every nerve I possessed screamed warning. This was the line. Once I crossed it, there was no pretending this was purely professional. No maintaining the fiction that I was just an assistant doing her job. Eleanor. My name a question. Plea. An invitation. Kissed him. Or he kissed me. It was impossible to tell who moved first. But suddenly we were tangled together. Months of tension and manipulation and genuine attraction combusting into something that felt inevitable. His hands in my hair. Mine pulling at his shirt. mouths hungry, desperate, like we were both starving for something we'd denied ourselves too long. He tasted like whiskey and want. Felt like power and vulnerability in equal measure. He pulled back just enough to speak. We should stop. You should think about this. Make sure it's what you want. Shut up. I kissed him again. Harder. I've thought enough. Done enough thinking for both of us. He lifted me, carried me to his bedroom. Laid me on sheets that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Looked at me like I was something precious and devastating simultaneously. Tell me this is real, he whispered against my mouth. Tell me I'm not imagining that you feel this too. It's not real. None of this is real. I'm using you. Destroying you. Everything you feel for me is based on lies. But what I said was, it's real. And in that moment maybe it was. Maybe the lies had become truth through repetition. Maybe Eleanor Hartley had become so convincing that even I believed her. Or maybe I'd simply forgotten how to separate revenge from reality. How to maintain distance when your target became your world. We made love slowly. Thoroughly. He touched me like he was memorizing every detail. Whispered things in my ear that sounded like promises and confessions and prayers. And I responded with my body even while my mind screamed warnings about lines crossed and points of no return. Afterward, lying in his arms while Manhattan glittered below, he spoke into the darkness. I love you. I know it's too soon. I know it's probably inappropriate. But Eleanor, I'm in love with you. Completely. Terrifyingly. I need you to know that. 3 words I'd never expected. Never prepared for. Never imagined I'd hear from the man responsible for my brother's death. 3 words that complicated everything. Adrian. You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. He pulled me closer. Whatever this is between us, it's real for me. More real than anything I've felt in years. Maybe ever. I lay there in silence, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Strong. Steady. Alive. While Michael was cold in the ground because Adrian Blackwell had valued speed over safety. But this Adrian, the one holding me, the one who'd confessed love, the one who trusted me with his secrets, wasn't the monster I'd imagined. He was complex, flawed, human, capable of genuine feeling even while participating in corrupt systems, which made destroying him so much harder, and so much more necessary. Because if I didn't finish this, if I let love or doubt or moral complexity stop me, then Michael died for nothing. And every future victim of Adrian's ambition would be on my conscience too. I need to use the bathroom, I said, extracting myself from his embrace. I found my clutch in the living room. Pulled out my phone. Typed quickly to Catherine Winters. I'm at his penthouse. Have access to his personal computer. Can you upload the monitoring software remotely if I give you the network info? Response came within seconds. Send the details. And Eleanor, be careful. Don't let feelings compromise the mission. Too late, I thought. Way too late. But I sent the network information anyway. Then I returned to Adrian's bedroom, climbed back into his arms, and let him hold me while software installed on his personal computer that would give Catherine access to everything. Bank records, communications, the evidence that would destroy him. You okay? He murmured against my hair. You seemed tense suddenly. Just overwhelmed. This is a lot. Good overwhelmed or bad overwhelmed? Both. Either. I don't know anymore. Good, I lied. Definitely good. He kissed my temple. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we have the meridian inspection. I'll need you sharp. Closed my eyes. Felt his breathing slow as he drifted toward sleep. And I lay there in the darkness, trapped between the man I was destroying and the woman I'd become in the process. Power, Adrian had said, was knowing which strings to pull, which levers to push, how to make people want to give you what you needed. I was learning. Oh well. But I was also learning that power always came with a price. And I was starting to suspect that price might be higher than I'd calculated. Chapter 5. The mirror scene. I woke in Adrian's bed to gray morning light and the weight of what I'd done pressing against my chest like concrete. He was already awake, propped on one elbow, watching me with an expression I couldn't name. Vulnerable. Terrifying in its openness. "Morning," he said quietly. "You talk in your sleep." As flooded through me. What did I say? Michael's name. Over and over. "You were crying." He brushed hair from my face. "I'm sorry you still carry that pain. I'm sorry I can't take it away." Relief and guilt tangled together. I'd almost exposed everything in my sleep. Almost destroyed 3 years of planning because I couldn't control my subconscious. It comes and goes. Dreams mostly. I'm fine. You're not fine. But you're good at pretending you are. He kissed my forehead. "I recognize the armor, Eleanor. I wear the same kind." The spyware I'd installed last night was transmitting everything to Catherine. Right now, this moment, our conversation was being recorded. Nothing was private anymore. Nothing was safe. "I should go. Let you get ready for the day. Have breakfast with me. I want to pretend for one morning that we're normal people who get to wake up together without immediately thinking about work." His fingers traced patterns on my shoulder. "Please." How could I refuse? Eleanor Hartley, the devoted assistant who'd fallen for her boss, would stay. Would cherish these intimate moments. Would act like this was real and good and sustainable. So I stayed. We ate breakfast at his dining table. A ridiculous slab of marble that sat 12 but was set for 2. He made omelets while I watched, surprised by his competence in a kitchen. "You cook." "When I have reason to. Usually I don't." He plated food that looked restaurant quality. "But having you here makes me want to do normal things. Cook breakfast. Talk about something other than projects and deadlines. Pretend I'm not the monster everyone thinks I am. I don't think you're a monster. Liar." But he smiled. "You think I'm complicated. Morally compromised. Capable of good and terrible in equal measure. And you're right. I am all those things." He set the plates down, sat across from me. "I've been thinking about what you said. About drawing lines. About the difference between necessary compromise and unacceptable corruption. And I want to change. Actually change, not just talk about it. I want to build something that doesn't require bribes and threats and morally questionable decisions." He met my eyes. "I want to be someone you can be proud of. Someone who deserves you." Every word was another knife. 'Cause he meant it. I could see the sincerity. Hear the genuine desire for redemption. He was trying to become a better man because I'd inspired that transformation. And I was going to destroy him for it. That's a big shift. Your entire business model would need restructuring. I know. It'll cost time and money and probably lose me some projects. But Eleanor, if the choice is between my empire and my conscience, I'm starting to think conscience is worth more. He reached across the table, took my hand. "You make me want to be worth something beyond my bank balance." This was the moment. The perfect opening. I could encourage this transformation, document everything, then reveal that even his attempts at redemption came too late. That justice didn't care about good intentions. Or I could pull back. Slow this down. Maintain emotional distance before I got in too deep to surface. But I was already too deep. Had been since the moment I'd kissed him. Maybe before. "Show me," I said. "Show me you're serious about changing. Not just words. Action. What do you want me to do?" The Meridian witness. The one being handled. "I want you to call off whatever arrangements your security made. Pay him fairly for his statement. Protect his employment. Ensure there are no repercussions. Prove that you can face criticism without destroying the critic." Adrian's jaw tightened. "That project is already under scrutiny. If he goes public, then you fix whatever he's complaining about. Transparently. Publicly. Show the industry that Blackwell Industries takes accountability seriously." I squeezed his hand. "This is what redemption looks like, Adrian. Not avoiding consequences. Facing them." He was quiet for a long moment. I could see the calculation happening. The business instinct warring with the desire to be better. All right, he said finally. I'll call Morrison this morning. Tell him to stand down. The witness gets full protection and fair compensation. No intimidation. No pressure. Clean resolution. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This could expose violations that cost us the project. That cost investors millions. I'm trusting you that it's worth it. It is. Even if you don't know why yet. The Meridian inspection was scheduled for 2 o'clock. We arrived at the site at noon to review everything one final time. The building rose 47 stories into a gray November sky. Glass and steel wrapped around what would eventually be luxury residences and premium commercial space. Adrian walked the site with his project manager, asking detailed questions about every system. I trailed behind, tablet in hand, documenting everything. The legitimate notes and the evidence I'd send to Catherine tonight. The witness, Carlos Rivera. He's meeting us at 3, the project manager said nervously. Morrison said to extend full cooperation. Good. Adrian's tone was neutral. I want Rivera to feel comfortable being honest. If there are problems, I need to know about them. After the manager left, Adrian turned to me. Come with me. There's something I want to show you. He led me to the top floor. Still bare concrete and exposed rebar, but with views that would be stunning once the windows were installed. Manhattan spread in every direction, grid of streets and canyon of buildings that held 8 million stories. This is my favorite part, he said, moving to the edge where a window would eventually be. Before the finishing work, when you can still see the bones. The structure that holds everything up. It's higher than I expected. I stayed carefully back from the edge. Heights had never bothered me before, but something about the exposed floor made my stomach tight. Come here. He extended his hand. I won't let you fall. I moved closer, let him pull me against him. His arm solid around my waist. Together we looked out over the city he'd spent his adult life shaping. When I was 25, my father brought me to a site just like this. Told me that every building started with vision and ended with legacy. That what we built would outlast us. Define us. That there was no room for weakness in construction. No tolerance for sentiment or doubt. Adrian's voice was distant. He was right about legacy. Wrong about everything else. What do you mean? Legacy isn't just what you build. It's how you build it. Who you sacrifice along the way. What compromises you make. He turned me to face him, gray eyes intense. I've built 47 projects in 12 years. I can list every building, every square footage, every profit margin. But I can't tell you the names of the workers who died making them real. Can't tell you how many families I've destroyed in pursuit of timeline and profit. This was it. The confession I'd been waiting for. The admission of guilt that would make destroying him feel like justice instead of murder. How many? I asked softly. How many people have died on your projects? 18 documented fatalities over 12 years. Industry average is 0.73 per major project, so statistically I'm right at standard. His voice cracked. But Eleanor, they're not statistics. They're people. Carlos Rivera's brother-in-law was one of them. That's why he's testifying. Why he won't take money to disappear. Because I killed his family and he wants someone to acknowledge it. My breath caught. What happened? 3 years ago. Hudson Yards preliminary work. We were behind schedule. I told the site manager to start demolition before permits cleared. The building came down during occupied hours because I didn't want to wait for proper evacuation protocols. He looked at me and I saw real anguish. 12 workers were inside. 3 died. Michael Torres was one of them. Carlos Rivera's brother-in-law. 23 years old. Engineering student. He had dreams. Michael Torres. Not Michael Brennan. But the timing was right. The location was right. The circumstances were. God. Oh God. He thought my fiancé and Carlos's brother-in-law were different people. How many Michaels are there? The question tore from my throat. How many 23-year-old men with dreams died because you couldn't wait 3 weeks for permits? I don't know. His voice broke completely. I didn't keep count. Didn't let myself think about it because thinking about it meant confronting what I'd become. But Eleanor, I swear I'm different now. I swear I want to make amends. Make amends. I pushed away from him, suddenly needing distance. You can't make amends for murder. For valuing your timeline over human lives. For killing people and calling it industry standard. You're right. I can't. He didn't try to touch me again. Just stood there, exposed and vulnerable at the edge of an unfinished building. I can only try to be better going forward. Stop the pattern before more people die. That's what you've been trying to teach me, isn't it? That profit isn't worth what it costs. I couldn't breathe. The revelation that Carlos's brother-in-law had died in the same incident as Michael. It was too much. Too close. Too revealing if Adrian put the pieces together. But he was too lost in his own confession to notice my reaction. I killed them, he said to Manhattan. To the city he'd shaped with blood and ambition. Not directly. Not with my hands. But my decisions, my priorities, my impatience. It killed them. And I have to live with that. Have to look in the mirror every morning and see someone capable of valuing money over lives. So change. My voice shook. Right now. Right here. Be the man you're claiming you want to be. How? The Rivera testimony. When he speaks at 3, you listen. You don't defend. Don't justify. Don't hide behind lawyers or statistics. You look him in the eye and take accountability. Acknowledge his loss. Promise to do better. Mean it. And then what? Accountability doesn't bring his brother-in-law back. Doesn't undo the damage. No. But it starts the healing. For him. For you. For everyone your ambition has destroyed. I moved to where he stood, forced him to look at me. Adrian, right now you're standing at a choice point. You can keep being the man who prioritizes empire over ethics. Or you can be someone different. Someone who breaks the cycle. But you can't be both. And you can't perform redemption. You have to actually choose it. He pulled me against him suddenly. Desperate. I choose you. I choose the man you make me want to be. I choose differently. My heart was breaking. 'Cause he meant it. Because this transformation was real. Because I was about to destroy him anyway, and the worst part was that he'd never see it coming. Prove it, I whispered against his chest. 3 o'clock. Carlos Rivera. Show me that Adrian Blackwell can face consequences without destroying the person delivering them. 3 o'clock arrived with Carlos Rivera and the federal inspector. Rivera was mid-30s, weathered by sun and work, with eyes that held old grief and new determination. When he saw Adrian, his jaw tightened. Mr. Blackwell. Mr. Rivera. Thank you for coming. Adrian's voice was steady. Professional. But I saw his hands clench. I understand you have concerns about the Meridian project. About material quality and safety protocols. I have concerns about how your company operates. How you sacrifice worker safety for speed. How you intimidate people who try to speak up. Rivera pulled out a folder. I've documented everything. Every shortcut. Every pressure tactic. Every time someone died because you couldn't be bothered to wait for proper procedures. The inspector looked uncomfortable. Perhaps we should conduct this interview privately. No. Adrian cut him off. Mr. Rivera deserves to speak openly. And I deserve to hear what he has to say without filters. He turned to Rivera. Tell me everything. I'm listening. What followed was brutal. Rivera detailed years of violations across multiple Blackwell projects. Spoke about his brother-in-law Michael Torres. Bright, ambitious, working construction to pay for engineering school. Described the morning of the Hudson Yards demolition. How Michael had questioned whether they should be working in an occupied building. How the site manager had pressured him to continue anyway. How the building had come down at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, crushing Michael and 2 others beneath concrete and steel. He was 23, Rivera said, voice shaking. He called his mother every Sunday. He wanted to design buildings that would make cities better. And you killed him because you couldn't wait 3 goddamn weeks for evacuation permits. Adrian's face was pale. I know I did. And I'm sorry is worthless, but it's all I have. I'm profoundly, desperately sorry for your loss. For Michael's death. For every family I've destroyed in pursuit of deadlines that didn't matter nearly as much as I convinced myself they did. Sorry doesn't bring him back. No, it doesn't. But Mr. Rivera, I promise you, and I need you to know I mean this, your brother-in-law's death will not be meaningless. I'm restructuring how Blackwell Industries operates. New safety protocols. New timeline expectations. New accountability measures. And I'm establishing a foundation in Michael Torres's name to support families of workers killed in construction accidents. It won't undo what I did. But maybe it'll prevent future deaths. Rivera stared at him. You expect me to believe you. I expect you to hold me accountable. Document everything. Report violations. Make sure I keep these promises. Adrian moved closer. I can't change the past. But I can change how I operate going forward. And you can help ensure that change is real and lasting. Will you? The inspector watched this exchange with obvious confusion. This wasn't how these meetings usually went. Developers didn't confess. Didn't take responsibility. Didn't promise transformation. But Adrian wasn't performing. This was real. I could see it in every line of his body. Hear it in his voice. Feel it in the air between them. Rivera studied Adrian for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. I'll be watching. And if you slip back into old patterns, I'll make sure the whole industry knows. I'm counting on it. Adrian shook his hand. Thank you for your courage. For Michael's memory. For not letting me hide from what I've done. After Rivera and the inspector left, Adrian sank into a chair. Exhausted. Drained. But somehow lighter than I'd seen him. I did it, he said wonderingly. I actually faced it. Owned it. Committed to change without hedging or defending or hiding behind lawyers. Yes, you did. I crouched beside him. How do you feel? Terrified. Relieved. Like I finally looked in a mirror after years of avoiding my reflection. He pulled me into his lap, buried his face in my shoulder. Thank you. For pushing me. For not letting me stay comfortable in my corruption. For being brave enough to demand better from me. This was the moment Catherine Winters had warned me about. The moment when the target becomes human. When revenge gets complicated by genuine connection. When justice and love collide. I held him while he processed what he'd done. While he faced himself for maybe the first time. And I tried not to think about the spyware recording everything. About Catherine building her case with every confession. About the federal investigation that would soon consume him. About how his transformation had come too late to save him. My phone buzzed. Text from Catherine. Perfect. The Rivera testimony combined with the financial evidence will be enough. Federal prosecutor wants to move within 2 weeks. Are you prepared for what comes next? I looked at Adrian. At the man who'd just acknowledged his guilt. Promised to change. Meant it with every fiber of his being. Was I prepared to destroy him anyway? Yes, I typed back. I'm ready. But I wasn't sure which Eleanor answered that question. The one who'd spent 3 years planning revenge. Or the one who'd fallen in love with her target. Or worse, the one who'd become so tangled in lies and truth that she couldn't tell them apart anymore. Adrian lifted his head, looked at me with something like hope. What are you thinking? That I'm about to betray you. That everything you feel for me is built on deception. That in 2 weeks, federal agents will arrest you and you'll finally understand what it means to lose everything. I'm thinking, I said carefully, that you took a big step today. That you faced your demons. That I'm proud of you. Be proud with me. He kissed me softly. Stay tonight. Tomorrow. However long you'll give me. Let me prove that this change is real. That I can be the man you deserve. Adrian. I love you, Eleanor. I know it's complicated. I know there are 1,000 reasons this shouldn't work. But I love you. And I hope you're falling in love with me too. How many ghosts fit behind your eyes? I wanted to ask. How many Michaels haunt your dreams? How many lives have you destroyed while building your empire? But what I said was, how many ghosts fit behind your eyes? He blinked, surprised by the question. Too many. More than I can count. More than I can ever make right. His thumb brushed my cheek. But with you, I'm starting to think redemption might be possible. That I might be able to live with my reflection after all. And how many ghosts would it take to make you stop? To make you realize that some sins are unforgivable? Eleanor, what's wrong? Why are you asking this? Because in 2 weeks you'll understand that I'm one of those ghosts. That I've been haunting you since the moment we met. That my brother's death created me and your destruction will complete me. Just curious. About what drives you. What keeps you going despite the weight of all you've done? You keep me going. The possibility of being better. Of building something that matters beyond profit. He stood, pulled me up with him. Come on. Let's get out of here. I want to take you somewhere. Show you something that might help you understand who I'm trying to become. Where? You'll see. We drove to Brooklyn. To a neighborhood I didn't recognize. Working class, diverse, filled with the kind of people Adrian's developments usually displaced. He pulled up to a community center that looked well-maintained but modest. I bought this building 3 years ago, he said as we got out. Right after the Hudson Yards incident. I couldn't undo what I'd done, but I could try to balance the scales somehow. So I established a free job training center. Construction skills, safety certification, English classes, legal aid. Everything workers need to protect themselves from people like me. He led me inside. The place was bustling. People at computers, in classrooms, clustered around instructors demonstrating proper safety equipment use. A banner read, Torres Memorial Training Center. I named it for Michael Torres, Carlos Rivera's brother-in-law. The first casualty I actually forced myself to remember by name. Adrian's voice was soft. This doesn't absolve me. Nothing absolves me. But it's something. A small attempt at redemption that will never be enough. I stared at the banner. At the people learning skills that might keep them alive on construction sites. At this tangible evidence that Adrian had been trying to change long before I arrived. That my revenge might be destroying someone who was already destroying himself with guilt. Why didn't you tell me about this? Because it feels performative. Like I'm trying to buy my way out of guilt. And you can't buy redemption, Eleanor. You can only earn it through consistent choice. Through being better every single day, even when no one's watching. He was wrong. I was watching. Had been watching since the moment I planted that tracker. Since I'd installed spyware. Since I'd started documenting every move he made. And what I'd seen was a man genuinely trying to transform. Who'd established this center before I manipulated him toward conscience. Who'd been carrying the weight of his sins long before I arrived to make them heavier. Take me home, I said suddenly. You're home. I need to think. Are you okay? You look. I'm fine. Just overwhelmed. Today was a lot. We drove back to Manhattan in silence. Up to his penthouse where I'd installed the spyware that was recording everything. Where Catherine was listening. Where evidence accumulated with every word. Eleanor, talk to me. Adrian pulled me close as soon as the door closed. You've been distant since the Rivera meeting. What's going on? How many people have to forgive you before you forgive yourself? The question seemed to surprise him. I don't know. Maybe I'm not supposed to forgive myself. Maybe carrying the guilt is the price I pay. That's not redemption. That's just suffering. Maybe I deserve to suffer. Maybe you do. I looked up at him. But suffering doesn't undo what you've done. Doesn't bring back the people you've killed. Doesn't make the families you've destroyed whole again. Just performance. Making yourself feel better by feeling bad. Then what should I do? Tell me and I'll do it. Everything was wrong. This conversation, this moment, this entire situation. I come here for revenge. To destroy the man who killed my brother. And instead I'd found someone already destroyed by his own choices. Already punishing himself more effectively than I ever could. The spyware was recording. Catherine was listening. The case was building. In 2 weeks, federal agents would arrive. And I could stop it. Could warn him. Could choose love over justice. Or I could let it happen. Watch him fall. Complete the revenge I'd spent 3 years planning. Eleanor. His hand cupped my face. Please talk to me. You're scaring me. I need to tell you something, I heard myself say. Something I should have told you from the beginning. This was it. The moment of truth. Where I confessed everything or committed fully to the lie. Where I chose between revenge and redemption. Between justice and love. Between Eleanor Brennan and Eleanor Hartley. What is it? His thumb brushed my cheek. You can tell me anything. I meant what I said, I love you. Nothing you say will change that. He was wrong. What I was about to say would change everything. The question was, which Eleanor would say it? Chapter 6. The Betrayal. My real name is Eleanor Brennan. The words hung between us like smoke. Adrian's expression shifted. Confusion, then calculation, then a terrible dawning understanding. Brennan. Not Hartley. Not Hartley. My voice was steady even as my world collapsed. Michael Brennan was my brother. Not my fiancé. My brother. 23 years old. Died at Hudson Yards 3 years ago when you ordered demolition before evacuation permits cleared. His hand dropped from my face. Stepped back like I'd struck him. You've been lying this entire time. Yes. The household position. The assistant role. Everything, it was all to get close to me. He stopped. Processed. To destroy me. Yes. No point in softening it now. No point in anything except brutal honesty. I spent 3 years creating Eleanor Hartley. Erasing Eleanor Brennan from digital existence. Getting hired in your house. Becoming invisible so I could learn everything about you. Your patterns. Your weaknesses. How to hurt you the way you hurt me. He moved to the window. Stared out at Manhattan like it might offer answers. When he spoke, his voice was controlled. Deadly quiet. The tracker on my car. The files you've been accessing. The questions about my business practices. It was all evidence gathering. And the spyware on your personal computer. And the recordings from your office. And the financial documentation I've been uploading to federal investigators for the past month. I watched him absorb each betrayal. Catherine Winters isn't just a grieving mother. She's a federal witness coordinator building a RICO case against you. I've provided enough evidence to put you away for 20 years. Jesus Christ. He braced himself against the window frame. The safety protocols. The environmental concerns. Making me face Carlos Rivera. All of it was manipulation. Making me confess on record. Making me vulnerable. Yes. And no. I moved closer. Needing him to understand even though understanding wouldn't change anything. I came here for revenge, Adrian. I planned to watch you fall and feel nothing. But you weren't supposed to actually change. You weren't supposed to try to be better. You weren't supposed to make me love you. He turned, and his face was a mask of control hiding devastation underneath. Is that what you were going to say? That you love me? Because Eleanor, I don't even know who you are. The woman I fell in love with doesn't exist. She does. That's the problem. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Eleanor Hartley was supposed to be a role. Performance. But somewhere between the lies and the revenge and the manipulation, she became real. Became her. And I, fell in love with you despite every reason not to. How convenient. Fall in love with your target right before you destroy him. That's a nice touch. Really twists the knife. His voice was acid. Tell me, was sleeping with me part of the plan? Or just a pleasant bonus while you gathered evidence? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? He moved toward me, and I saw rage underneath the control. Explain how you can claim to love someone while systematically destroying their life, while recording their confessions, while feeding information to federal investigators. That's not love, Eleanor. That's sadism dressed up as justice. You killed my brother. The words exploded from me. You killed Michael because you couldn't wait 3 weeks. Because your timeline mattered more than worker safety. Because human lives were just acceptable losses in pursuit of your empire. And I've been living with that guilt every single day since. I established the Torres Center. I restructured my entire business model. I've spent 3 years trying to atone. 3 years trying to feel better about murder. That's not atonement, Adrian. That's just guilt management. Making yourself feel noble while continuing to operate the same corrupt systems that killed him in the first place. We stood there, breathing hard, years of grief and manipulation and genuine feeling colliding into something that hurt more than either of us had weapons for. When? He asked finally. When does the arrest happen? 2 weeks. Maybe less. Federal agents will come here. Or to the office. Catherine said they want to make it public. Send a message to the industry that corruption has consequences. And you'll testify. Yes, I'll tell them everything. Show them everything. Watch you lose everything the way I lost Michael. He laughed, bitter, broken. You know what the worst part is? I was actually falling for it. For you. Whatever version of you was real. I told you I loved you. Shared my darkest secrets. Started believing redemption was possible. He moved to his desk, pulled out a folder. I was going to give you this tomorrow. Had my lawyers draw it up last week. He threw the folder at me. Papers scattered across the floor. I picked one up, read. Blackwell Foundation for Construction Worker Safety Board of Directors. Adrian Blackwell, Eleanor Hartley, Carlos Rivera Annual Budget. $50 million mission. Provide safety training, legal advocacy, and family support for construction workers. I was making you a board member, he said. Equal authority. Full access to funding. I wanted you to help me transform the industry. Use my money and influence to actually save lives instead of costing them. He stared at me. I was trying to honor your brother's memory. Make his death mean something. The papers trembled in my hands. This wasn't supposed to happen. He wasn't supposed to have already been working toward redemption. Wasn't supposed to have created something beautiful from his guilt. This doesn't undo what you did. Nothing undoes what I did. Don't you think I know that? His control finally cracked. I can't bring Michael back. Can't restore the years you lost. Can't erase my sins no matter how much money I throw at trying. But I was trying, Eleanor. I was actually fucking trying. And you let me believe you were helping. That we were partners building something better. When really you were just sharpening the knife. You deserve this. You deserve to lose everything. Maybe I do. But did you deserve to become someone who lies for 3 years? Who manipulates and spies and destroys while calling it justice? He moved closer and I saw tears in his eyes. Actual tears. Your brother wouldn't want this. Wouldn't want you to hollow yourself out for revenge. Wouldn't want you to become the kind of person who weaponizes love. Don't you dare talk about Michael. Don't you dare pretend you knew him. I didn't know him. That's the tragedy, isn't it? He was just a statistic to me. A casualty I didn't bother learning about until guilt forced me to face what I'd done. But Eleanor, I know you. Or I thought I did. And the woman I know, the real one underneath the revenge, she wouldn't want this ending. Wouldn't want to destroy someone trying to change. The woman you know is a lie. Is she? Because I think you're the one lying now. To yourself. About what you actually want. About whether revenge will fill the hole Michael's death left. He touched my face. Gentle despite everything. I love you. Whatever your name is. Whatever your reasons for being here. I love the woman who pushed me to be better. Who made me face my demons. who inspired me to actually try for redemption. And I hope she loves me too. Despite everything. Despite the very good reasons not to. I pulled away from his touch. Love doesn't erase what you did. Doesn't make this okay. Doesn't save you from consequences. I know. And I'll face those consequences. If federal agents show up in 2 weeks, I'll cooperate fully. Plead guilty. Take whatever sentence they give me. Because you're right. I do deserve punishment. His eyes held mine. But Eleanor, will destroying me bring Michael back? Will watching me lose everything make you whole again? Or will you just be left with more ghosts? I couldn't answer. Because he was asking questions I'd been avoiding for 3 years. Questions about what justice actually looked like. Whether revenge and healing were the same thing. Whether I'd spent so long planning destruction that I'd forgotten why I'd started. My phone buzzed. Catherine, is everything all right? Your audio feed cut out 10 minutes ago. I'd forgotten about the spyware. The recording. That everything we'd just said was potentially documented. Evidence of my confession, his response, the foundation plans he'd been preparing. You need to leave, Adrian said quietly. Pack your things from the office tomorrow. Take whatever severance you feel you've earned. Testify at my trial if that's what you need. But Eleanor, please don't come back here. Don't drag this out. If you're going to destroy me, do it cleanly. Don't make me watch you walk away piece by piece. Adrian, go. Please just go. I went. I made it to the street before the tears came. Great heaving sobs that bent me double against a building wall. 3 years of planning. 3 years of careful construction. And I'd just thrown it all away by confessing. By trying to give him honesty when dishonesty would have served me better. My phone rang. Catherine. What the hell happened? The feed cut, then came back, then I heard. Eleanor, please tell me you didn't just confess everything to him. I did. Jesus Christ. Do you understand what you've done? You've compromised the entire investigation. Given him warning. Let him prepare defenses. He could flee the country, destroy evidence, intimidate witnesses. He won't. He said he'd cooperate. Take whatever sentence they give him. And you believe him. After lying for 3 years, you suddenly believe the man you've been deceiving. Catherine's voice was harsh. Eleanor, you've let feelings compromise your judgment. This is exactly what I warned you about. I know. Come to my office. We need to assess the damage. Figure out if we can salvage the case. I took a cab to Catherine's address, a brownstone in the West Village that served as both home and office. She answered the door looking exhausted and furious in equal measure. Inside. We need to talk. Her office was organized chaos. Files everywhere. Photos of her daughter Elena on every surface. A war room dedicated to destroying Adrian Blackwell. Tell me exactly what you said. Word for word. I recounted the confession. The revelations about my real identity. The evidence I'd gathered. Adrian's response about the foundation. Everything. Catherine listened with increasing anger. You fell for him. Don't lie. Not to me. Not after everything. She moved to her desk, pulled out a folder. You fell in love with your target and it compromised everything. Just like I knew it would. I didn't plan to. No one plans to. But Eleanor, men like Adrian Blackwell are experts at manipulation. They make you believe they're redeemable. They perform vulnerability and transformation. They make you think love can change them. And then they destroy you for believing it. He was already changing. Before I arrived. The Torres Center, the safety protocols. Performance. All of it. He knew he was under scrutiny. Knew eventually someone would hold him accountable. So he built himself some redemption in advance. Insurance against consequences. Catherine opened the folder, showed me photos. This is my daughter. This is Elena. 26 years old. Brilliant. Fickle. She discovered Adrian was bribing city officials. Went to him privately, gave him a chance to make it right. And 3 days later, she fell from her balcony. The photos showed a beautiful young woman. Bright smile. Intelligent eyes. Not unlike how I imagined I'd looked before grief hardened me. The police ruled it suicide, Catherine continued. But I know my daughter. She wasn't suicidal. She was murdered. And Adrian Blackwell gave the order even if he didn't push her himself. Do you have proof? Not enough for criminal charges. That's why I needed the RICO case. Why I needed someone on the inside. She stared at me. You were supposed to be that someone. You were supposed to get me the evidence I couldn't access. Instead, you fell in love and warned him. I got you evidence. Months of it. Financial records. Testimony, recordings. Tainted now because he knows you were gathering it. His lawyers will argue entrapment, coercion, that you manipulated him into confessions under false pretenses. Catherine's voice broke. You might have just destroyed our only chance at justice for Elena. For Michael. For everyone he's hurt. The weight of what I'd done settled over me. I'd been so focused on my own moral crisis that I'd forgotten about Catherine's. About all the other victims who deserved justice. About the bigger picture beyond my personal revenge. I'm sorry, I whispered. I didn't think. No, you didn't. You let feelings override strategy. Let love compromise justice. She moved to the window, stared out at the street. But maybe we can salvage this. If Adrian really does cooperate like he claimed. If he pleads guilty to everything. That might be enough. And if he doesn't, then we've lost. He'll lawyer up, fight every charge. Probably win given that our star witness just confessed to a 3-year deception. And Elena's death remains unavenged. Michael's death remains unavenged. All because you couldn't maintain emotional distance. I wanted to defend myself. To explain that Adrian had become human. That destroying him felt less like justice and more like creating another victim. But Catherine didn't want explanations. She wanted results. What do you need me to do? Yes. Go home. Wait for my call. If the feds still want your testimony, you give it. Completely. Honestly. Hold nothing back even if it means admitting you fell for him. Your credibility is already shot, but maybe radical honesty salvages something. And Adrian stays away from him. No contact. No warning. If he runs or destroys evidence or intimidates witnesses, that's on you. She opened the door. Go. I'll be in touch. I walked home through cold November streets. My apartment felt hollow. All the carefully maintained anonymity suddenly seemed pathetic. I'd spent 3 years becoming no one so I could destroy someone. And now I was no one for real. Eleanor Brennan lost to grief. Eleanor Hartley revealed as a lie. Just a ghost caught between identities, belonging nowhere. My laptop sat on the desk. I opened it, pulled up the encrypted files I'd kept since the beginning. Photos of Michael. Journal entries tracking my planning. Every piece of evidence I'd collected against Adrian. And the new documents. The foundation proposal. The safety protocols he'd implemented. The Torres Center budget. Evidence of transformation that had started before I'd arrived. I'd wanted to destroy a monster. Instead, I'd fallen in love with a man trying to stop being monstrous. And in the process, I'd become something monstrous myself. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Eleanor. It's Adrian. My heart stopped. You're not supposed to call. I know. Catherine probably told you no contact. But I needed to say something. Before lawyers get involved and everything becomes official. He paused. I'm not running. I'm not destroying evidence. I told you I'd face consequences and I meant it. Federal agents show up, I cooperate fully. I plead guilty to everything they charge me with. I go to prison if that's what justice requires. Adrian, let me finish. I'm doing this not because I'm trying to win you back. Not because I think it'll change your mind about me. I'm doing it because you were right. About accountability. About facing consequences. About the difference between performing redemption and actually choosing it. His voice cracked. I love you. That hasn't changed, even though probably should. And I want you to know that whatever happens, whatever testimony you give, whatever prison sentence I receive, I don't hate you. I understand why you did it. I would have done the same in your position. Maybe worse. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate. For lying. For manipulating you. For weaponizing your feelings. You deserved honesty and I gave you deception. We both did things we regret. Difference is my sins killed people. Yours just killed a relationship that probably couldn't survive truth anyway. He was quiet for a moment. Take care of yourself, Eleanor Brennan. And when you testify against me, don't hold back. Tell them everything. I want the full truth on record. Whatever that means for me. Why are you doing this? Because you taught me something. That redemption isn't about avoiding consequences. It's about facing them. Choosing accountability even when you could run. Being brave enough to accept that some sins require punishment. He laughed softly. You wanted me to see my reflection. Really see it. Well, I'm looking now. And what I see needs to pay for what he's done. Even if that payment comes at your hands. I did love you. Do love you. That wasn't a lie. I know. That's what makes this so much worse. For both of us. Another pause. Goodbye, Eleanor. I hope you find peace after this. I hope destroying me gives you the closure you need. And if it doesn't, if revenge turns out to be hollow, I hope you find something else that makes life worth living again. He ended the call. I sat in the darkness of my apartment, holding a phone that had just delivered both an ending and an absolution. Adrian Blackwell was going to face justice. Was choosing accountability over escape. And somehow that felt worse than if he'd run. 'Cause it meant he really had changed. That transformation was real. That I'd destroyed someone who was already destroying himself with guilt and trying to rebuild into something better. My laptop pinged. Email from Catherine. Federal prosecutor wants to move up the timeline. Arrest warrant being executed tomorrow morning. Be ready to testify within the week. This is happening. Tomorrow morning. Less than 24 hours. Adrian would be arrested. Charged. Processed through the system he'd spent his life operating above. And I would testify. Would tell the truth about everything. The deception, the evidence gathering, the manipulation. But also the transformation. The genuine attempts at redemption. The foundation he'd been planning. The love that had complicated everything. I would tell the whole truth. Even the parts that didn't serve the narrative of Adrian Blackwell as irredeemable monster. Even the parts that made me look complicit in destruction rather than justice. 'Cause Adrian was right. Redemption wasn't about avoiding consequences. It was about facing them. And maybe that applied to me too. I pulled out Michael's photo, the only one I'd kept after burning the rest. My brother's face, young and bright and full of dreams that had been crushed under concrete and ambition. I did it, I whispered to the photo. I destroyed him. Got justice for you. Made him pay for what he did. But it didn't feel like justice. Felt like loss compounded. Like I'd sacrificed whatever remained of my soul to avenge his death. And now both of us were gone. I'm sorry, I said to my brother's memory. I'm sorry I couldn't separate revenge from healing. I'm sorry I let myself love him. I'm sorry everything is so much more complicated than I wanted it to be. The photo didn't answer. Photos never did. But I held it anyway, seeking comfort from paper and ink and memory. Tomorrow, federal agents would arrive at Adrian's penthouse. He would submit without resistance. Would cooperate fully. Would begin the process of paying for his sins with years of his life. And I would watch from a distance, the architect of his destruction, trying to convince myself this was what justice looked like. Trying to convince myself that the hollow feeling in my chest wasn't regret. Trying to convince myself that I'd chosen correctly. But deep down I knew the truth. There were no correct choices anymore. Just consequences. For Adrian. For me. For everyone caught in the machinery of revenge masquerading as righteousness. The body remembers. And mine would remember this night for the rest of my life. The night I destroyed the man I loved and called it justice. The night Eleanor Brennan and Eleanor Hartley both died, leaving behind something that was neither and both. The night I learned that revenge doesn't heal wounds, just creates new ones. Chapter 7: The Fire. The call came at 6:47 a.m. I'd been awake for hours, watching dawn break over Manhattan through my apartment window, wondering if Adrian was awake too. If he was preparing for what was coming. If he'd spent the night the way I had, replaying every moment, every lie, every genuine feeling that had bloomed in contaminated soil. Ms. Brennan. The voice was crisp. Federal. This is Agent Sarah Martinez with the FBI. We need you to come to Federal Plaza immediately. There's been a situation. It's flooded my veins. What kind of situation? I can't discuss it over the phone. How quickly can you get here? 30 minutes. Make it 20. The line went dead. I dressed in a blur of panic. Situation. What kind of situation required 20 minutes instead of 30? Had Adrian run after all? Destroyed evidence? Done something desperate? Or worse, had something happened to him? The cab ride to Federal Plaza took 18 minutes that felt like hours. Agent Martinez met me in the lobby. Mid-30s, sharp-eyed, with a kind of competence that came from years of dealing with white-collar criminals who thought they were smarter than everyone else. Ms. Brennan. Thank you for coming so quickly. She guided me toward the elevators. We have a problem. Where's Adrian? Was he arrested? We arrived at his penthouse at 5:30 this morning with an arrest warrant. The building doorman let us up. We knocked. No answer. Used our warrant to enter. She paused as we stepped into the elevator. The apartment was empty. Computer hard drives removed. Files cleared. No sign of Blackwell anywhere. No, he'd promised. He'd said he would cooperate. Face consequences. He'd looked me in the eye and sworn he wouldn't run. He's gone. My voice sounded distant. Disappeared sometime between midnight and 5 a.m. We're checking airport manifests, train stations, private airfields. But Ms. Brennan, men with Adrian Blackwell's resources can vanish very effectively if they plan properly. She led me into a conference room. Which is why we need to know, did you warn him? Did you tell him the arrest was happening today? No. Catherine called him off limits. I haven't spoken to him since. I stopped. Since the confession last night. Since he'd called to say goodbye. Since he'd promised not to run. Martinez's expression sharpened. Since when? Since I told him everything. Yesterday evening. I confessed who I really was. That I'd been gathering evidence. That federal charges were coming. The words tumbled out. But he said he wouldn't run. Said he'd cooperate. Face consequences. And you believed him? Yes, I believed him. Martinez studied me for a long moment. Ms. Brennan, I'm going to be frank. Your credibility as a witness is already compromised because of the deception involved in gathering evidence. If it turns out you warned Blackwell and helped him escape, you're looking at obstruction charges. Possibly conspiracy. Do you understand? I didn't help him escape. I told you he promised. Criminals lie. Especially when they're facing 20 years in federal prison. He pulled out a file. We found something else at his apartment. Letter. Addressed to you. Sealed envelope, your name on it. We've opened it as part of the investigation. You should read it. She handed me the envelope. My name in Adrian's handwriting. Inside a single page. Eleanor. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. I know what I promised. I know I said I'd cooperate, face consequences, choose accountability over escape. I meant it when I said it. But after we spoke, I realized something. Going to prison doesn't actually serve justice. Just removes me from the equation. Makes me unable to do the one thing that might actually matter. Make amends. I've transferred all Blackwell Industries assets to a trust. The Torres Foundation now has controlling interest in every project. Carlos Rivera and Catherine Winters are the trustees. They'll decide how to proceed with developments, whether to continue or shut them down, what happens to the profits. Every penny I made from cutting corners and prioritizing speed over safety, it now belongs to the families I destroyed, including yours. The foundation will receive $2.3 billion. The Torres Memorial Center will expand nationally. Safety training, legal advocacy, family support for construction workers. Everything I should have built from the beginning instead of an empire on bones. I've also compiled a complete record of every bribe, every corrupt official, every violation. Names, dates, amounts. It's all there. Enough to prosecute not just me, but everyone who participated in the system. Every city councilman who took money. Every inspector who looked away. Every contractor who cut corners because I pressured them. You wanted justice. Real justice, not just my punishment. Here it is. The whole corrupt infrastructure exposed. Let federal prosecutors burn it all down. As for me, I'm disappearing. Not to escape consequences, but to become someone who can actually make a difference. Someone who doesn't exist in the world that created him. I'll spend whatever remains of my life trying to balance scales that will never be balanced. Trying to save people the way I should have saved your brother. Love you. That was real. Everything else might have been contaminated by lies and manipulation, but what I felt for you, what I still feel, that's the truest thing I've ever known. I hope someday you can forgive me. Not for my sins. Those are unforgivable. But for leaving. For choosing this path instead of the one you planned for me. For believing that redemption requires more than prison time. Thank you for seeing me. Really seeing me. For holding up the mirror and forcing me to confront what I'd become. You gave me a gift I didn't deserve and didn't know I needed. Be well, Eleanor Brennan. Live a life that honors your brother's memory. And know that somewhere, someone who loved you is trying to do the same. P.S. The files are at this address. Coordinates provided. Everything you need to dismantle the entire system. Use them. I read it 3 times. Each time the words hit harder. He'd given away everything. His company. His fortune. His future. Not to escape justice but to serve it more effectively than prison ever could. And he'd left me the tools to destroy not just him, but everyone who'd participated in the corruption that killed Michael. Well, Martinez's voice cut through my thoughts. Does this seem like remorse to you? Or a manipulative escape plan? I don't know. The honest answer. Maybe both. We're treating this as flight. Warrant is out for his arrest. If he contacts you. He won't. If he does, you're required to report it immediately. Failure to do so constitutes harboring a fugitive. Clear. Clear. Martinez stood. We still need your testimony. The RICO case proceeds whether Blackwell is in custody or not. Can you be ready to testify in 3 days? Yes. Good. Stay available. Don't leave the city. We'll be in touch. She left me alone in the conference room with Adrian's letter and coordinates for files that would destroy dozens of powerful people. I pulled out my phone, typed the coordinates into a mapping app. A storage facility in Queens. The same borough where Michael had died. Where Adrian's impatience had cost my brother everything. I should tell Martinez immediately. Should hand over the location and let federal agents secure the evidence. Should follow protocol and do this properly. Instead, I took a cab to Queens. The storage facility was industrial. Rows of identical units behind chain-link fencing. I used the code Adrian had embedded in the coordinates to access Unit 247. Inside, filing cabinets, computers, hard drives, years of documentation organized with the same brutal efficiency Adrian brought to everything. And a video camera on a tripod, facing a chair. A note taped to it. Eleanor, I knew you'd come here first. I knew you wouldn't be able to resist seeing what I left before turning it over to authorities. So here's the last thing I need you to know. Press play. Press play. Adrian's face filled the small screen. He looked exhausted. Haunted. but somehow more at peace than I'd seen him. Hi, Eleanor. If you're watching this, you found the files. That means you're still the relentless, intelligent, determined woman I fell in love with. He smiled, sad but genuine. I'm recording this at 3 a.m. In a few hours, federal agents will arrive at my apartment and find me gone. By the time you see this, I'll be unreachable. Disappeared into whatever life comes after this one. He shifted, leaned forward. I need you to understand why. Why I'm running after promising I wouldn't. Why I'm choosing this path instead of prison. Prison is easy. Prison is passive. I sit in a cell, serve my time, tell myself I've paid my debt to society. But it doesn't actually fix anything. Doesn't help the families I destroyed. Doesn't reform the corrupt system that created me. Doesn't prevent future Adrian Blackwells from making the same choices. This way, with the foundation, with the evidence I'm providing, with my complete removal from the industry, maybe something changes. Maybe the entire infrastructure of corruption collapses. Maybe workers are safer. Maybe families don't lose sons and daughters to preventable accidents. Maybe your brother's death actually means something. He paused, collecting himself. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to understand or approve. I'm just asking you to use what I've given you. Burn it all down, Eleanor. Every corrupt official, every complicit contractor, every person who valued profit over lives. Make them face consequences even if I'm escaping mine. And Eleanor, his voice cracked. Thank you. For everything. For lying to me if that's what it took to make me see. For loving me if that's what actually happened. For being brave enough to hold me accountable. You gave me something I didn't know I needed. A chance to choose who I wanted to be instead of who I was made to be. The video ended. I sat in the silence of the storage unit, surrounded by enough evidence to destroy dozens of careers and send countless people to prison. Adrian's final gift. Or his final manipulation. I still couldn't tell which. My phone rang. Catherine. Eleanor. Are you all right? Feds called me. Said Adrian ran. He didn't run. He disappeared. There's a difference. Not legally, there isn't. Eleanor, where are you? I looked at the filing cabinets. The computers. The years of evidence. Queens. Adrian left files. Everything we need to prosecute the entire corrupt system. Names, dates, amounts. It's all here. Jesus. Give me the address. I'm coming now. I gave her the coordinates. Hung up. Stood in the middle of Adrian's paper trail and tried to figure out what I was feeling. Betrayed that he'd run after promising accountability. Awed that he'd given away everything to serve justice more effectively. Devastated that he was gone and I'd never see him again. All of it. None of it. Everything was too tangled to separate into clean emotions. Catherine arrived 40 minutes later, slightly breathless. Eyes bright with something that looked like vindication. Show me. I showed her. We spent hours going through the files together. She documented everything with photos, made notes, compiled a preliminary list of everyone who'd be implicated. This is incredible, she breathed. This is years of work. Enough to dismantle the entire system. Eleanor. He just handed us the keys to reform the construction industry. Or he handed us a distraction. Made himself look noble while escaping prison. Does it matter? If the result is justice for Elena, for Michael, for everyone, does the motivation matter? I didn't know anymore. You still love him. Not a question. I still love someone. Whether it's who he actually was or who I needed him to be, I can't tell anymore. Catherine moved to where the video camera still sat on its tripod. Did he leave something here? A video. His explanation for why he ran. Can I see it? I hesitated, then pressed play. We watched together. Catherine's expression remained neutral until the end, when her face crumpled. He sounds like Elena, she whispered. Right before she died. She'd discovered the corruption and wanted to expose it. But she also believed people could change. Believed Adrian could change if someone just showed him the cost of his choices. She wiped her eyes. I thought she was naive. Thought her belief in redemption got her killed. But maybe she was right. Maybe Adrian did change. Just too late to save her. I'm sorry about Elena. Truly sorry. I know. And I'm sorry about Michael. We're both victims of the same man. Different crimes, same pain. She looked at the files. But maybe we can turn that pain into something useful. Let's burn it all down, Eleanor. Together. For our family members. For everyone who's been destroyed by unchecked power and corruption. Together. Agreed. We called Agent Martinez. Gave her the address. Within 2 hours, federal agents swarmed the storage unit, securing evidence, photographing everything, beginning the massive task of building cases against dozens of powerful people. Martinez pulled me aside. This changes things. The evidence here is substantial. Much stronger than what you gathered while undercover. Blackwell essentially wrote his own prosecution and threw in everyone else for good measure. So the case proceeds. Multiple cases proceed. We're looking at RICO charges, bribery, corruption, negligent homicide, racketeering. This is going to be the biggest construction industry scandal in New York history. She studied me. You're still a crucial witness. Your testimony establishes how the system operated from inside. But with this documentation, we're not entirely dependent on you. What about Adrian? The manhunt continues. But between you and me, men who give away billions and compile evidence against themselves aren't usually high-flight risks. My guess is he's somewhere living quietly, using his money to do exactly what he said. Make amends. We'll find him eventually. They always surface. A pause. Or we won't. Sometimes people who actually want to disappear manage it. Especially when they have resources and no real desire to maintain their old life. That evening, Catherine and I sat in a diner near the storage facility, drinking bad coffee and processing everything. What will you do now? She asked. Testify, and then what? I don't know. Eleanor Hartley doesn't exist anymore. Eleanor Brennan is a ghost I buried 3 years ago. I don't know who I am without revenge structuring my life. Maybe you get to find out. Build something new. Something that isn't defined by loss. What about you? I have the trials. Years of them probably. I'll testify about Elena. About what she discovered. About why I believe she was murdered even if we can never prove it. She smiled grimly. And then maybe I'll work with the foundation. Help make sure the Torres Center actually does what it's supposed to. Honor both our children by preventing future deaths. That sounds like healing. That sounds like survival with purpose. Close enough to healing for now. We sat in silence for a while. 2 women who'd lost everything to the same man. Who'd devoted years to destroying him. Who'd succeeded in ways neither had expected. Do you think he'll ever contact you? Catherine asked finally. No. I think that letter was goodbye. His way of closing the door on Eleanor Hartley and everything she represented. Do you want him to? Did I? Want to hear from the man who'd killed my brother but tried to make amends? Who'd manipulated me but genuinely changed? Who'd loved me as much as someone like him could love anyone? I don't know. Part of me does. Part of me hopes he's found whatever peace he was looking for. I stared into my coffee. Part of me is still angry. Still grieving. Still wanting him to suffer the way I've suffered. All of those can be true simultaneously. Grief is complex. Justice is complex. Love is complex. She reached across the table, squeezed my hand. You don't have to have it figured out, Eleanor. You just have to keep surviving. The understanding comes later. Or it doesn't. Either way, you survive. 3 days later, I testified before a grand jury. I told them everything. The deception, the evidence gathering, the manipulation. But also the transformation. The genuine attempts at reform. The foundation plans. The complete truth. Even the parts that made Adrian look sympathetic. The prosecutors weren't happy about the sympathy. They wanted a clear villain. I gave them a complicated human being who'd done monstrous things and then tried to become something better. The problem, Ms. Brennan, the lead prosecutor said after, is that juries like simple stories. Good versus evil. Victim versus perpetrator. Your testimony muddies those waters. Reality is muddy. I'm just telling the truth. The truth doesn't always serve justice. Then maybe we're serving the wrong kind of justice. The trials started 6 months later. I testified in 4 of them. Watched city councilmen, building inspectors, contractors all go down for their participation in the corruption that had killed my brother and dozens of others. Carlos Rivera testified too. About his brother-in-law Michael Torres. About the system that had killed him. About why accountability mattered even when it came too late to save lives. Catherine testified about Elena. About the brilliant daughter who'd discovered corruption and paid for that discovery with her life. About why she believed Adrian Blackwell had ordered her murder even if they couldn't prove it. The verdicts were mixed. Some convictions. Some acquittals. Justice incomplete and unsatisfying like it always was in the real world. But the system changed. New safety regulations. Stricter oversight. Federal monitoring of construction projects. The Torres Foundation funded it all, using Adrian's billions to rebuild the industry he'd corrupted. And somewhere, Adrian Blackwell remained disappeared. Interpol looked. FBI looked. Private investigators hired by angry officials looked. No one found him. It was like he'd simply ceased to exist. Sometimes I wondered if that was his ultimate redemption. Complete self-erasure. Removing himself so thoroughly that the industry could rebuild without his shadow. Other times I wondered if it was cowardice disguised as nobility. Escaping consequences while calling it sacrifice. Most times I didn't let myself think about it at all. 1 year after his disappearance, a package arrived at my apartment. No return address. Just a photograph inside. A small village somewhere tropical. A medical clinic with a sign in Spanish. And in the background, barely visible, a man who might have been Adrian. Older. Rougher. Transformed by sun and purpose into someone almost unrecognizable. On the back of the photo, a single line in familiar handwriting. Still balancing scales. Still trying. Still yours. I burned the photo immediately. Destroyed any evidence that could lead authorities to him. Because even after everything, the lies, the betrayal, the destruction, some part of me still wanted him to succeed at whatever redemption he was building in exile. Some part of me still loved the man he'd been trying to become. And some part of me knew that was okay. That love and justice didn't have to be mutually exclusive. That I could want him punished and also want him healed. Could honor my brother's memory while acknowledging the complexity of human transformation. The body remembers. Mine remembered Michael's funeral. Remembered Adrian's touch. Remembered the moment I'd confessed everything. Remembered the hollow feeling of revenge achieved. And slowly, painfully, it was starting to remember how to live without revenge structuring every moment. Catherine was right. Survival with purpose was close enough to healing for now. The rest would come later. Or it wouldn't. The way I'd survive. Chapter 8. Inheritance. 2 years after Adrian's disappearance, I stood in the Torres Memorial Center's newest facility. A gleaming building in the Bronx that would train 500 workers annually in safety protocols, workers' rights, and proper construction techniques. The plaque beside the entrance read, Michael Brennan Safety Training Wing in memory of Michael Brennan, 2002 to 2025. And all workers whose lives were lost to preventable accidents, may their deaths inspire the protections they deserved in life. Carlos Rivera had insisted on naming it after my brother. Michael Torres has the main center, he'd said. Your brother deserves recognition too. They died together. They should be remembered together. Catherine stood beside me, older now, gray threading through her dark hair. She'd spent 2 years testifying, attending trials, and rebuilding the foundation her daughter had died trying to expose. The work had aged her, but also given her something to pour her grief into. Elena would have loved this, she said quietly. She always believed in second chances. In systems that protected people instead of exploiting them. Michael would have too. He wanted to build things that mattered. That made lives better. I touched the plaque. I just wish they'd lived to see it. We're seeing it for them. Living the lives they didn't get to live. That's inheritance too. The ceremony started at noon. Politicians gave speeches about reform and accountability. Union representatives talked about worker protections. And Carlos Rivera spoke about his brother-in-law, about loss transformed into purpose, about how tragedy could become catalyst if you were brave enough to channel it. I didn't speak. I'd said everything I needed to say in testimony and depositions and late-night conversations with Catherine. Now I just watched the inheritance of Adrian's billions transform into something that saved lives instead of costing them. After the ceremony, Carlos pulled me aside. There's something you should see. Foundation business. He led me to an office in the administrative wing. Inside, a conference table covered in architectural plans. He spread them out. Detailed schematics for affordable housing developments across 3 boroughs. The foundation isn't just doing safety training anymore, he explained. We're developing housing. Actually building what Adrian always claimed he wanted to build. Quality apartments for working families at genuinely affordable prices. No corruption. No shortcuts. No profit prioritized over people. That's ambitious. It's necessary. Half the families whose loved ones died in construction accidents lost their homes too. Because one income disappeared and suddenly rent was impossible. He pointed to the plans. We're fixing that. Using Adrian's money to create the housing he should have built from the beginning. I studied the designs. They were good, thoughtful, sustainable. Everything Adrian had talked about wanting to do once he reformed his practices. The vision he'd described that night in his penthouse when he'd held me and talked about legacy meaning more than profit margins. He would have liked these, I said. Yeah, he would have. Carlos looked at me carefully. You know, I hated him. For years. Hated him with everything I had. He killed my brother-in-law. Destroyed my sister's life. Made her a widow at 24. He paused. But this work, what we're doing with his money, I can't hate it. Can't hate the lives it's saving. And that complicates the grief in ways I didn't expect. Welcome to the club. Population. Everyone who's been touched by Adrian Blackwell. You ever hear from him? The question caught me off guard. I'd burned the photo. Destroyed the evidence. Never told anyone about that glimpse of Adrian in exile. No. Why do you ask? Because last month, the foundation received an anonymous donation. $50 million from an untraceable offshore account. The transfer included a note. For worker housing. Build something that honors rather than destroys. Carlos studied my face. The language felt familiar. The amount was specific enough to fund exactly this project. And I thought, if he was going to contact anyone, it might be you. I kept my expression neutral. I haven't heard from him. But if I had to guess, he's somewhere trying to make amends the only way he knows how. By throwing money at problems he created. Is that cynical or hopeful? Both. Always both with Adrian. That evening, I returned to my apartment. No longer the anonymous studio in Murray Hill, but a modest 1-bedroom I'd rented using money from the foundation. They'd insisted on compensating me for the 3 years I'd spent undercover, the emotional toll of the trials, the contribution I'd made to exposing corruption. I'd resisted. Accepting money felt like being bought. But Catherine had been insistent. You sacrificed years of your life, your identity, your ability to trust. Take the compensation. Use it to rebuild yourself into whoever comes next. So I'd taken it. Not enough to be wealthy, but enough to stop surviving and start living. My laptop sat on the kitchen table, still containing encrypted files from the investigation. I'd kept copies of everything. Against protocol, probably illegal, but necessary for my own understanding. Sometimes I went through them, trying to map the person Adrian had been against the person he'd claimed to want to become. Tonight, I opened a file I'd avoided for months. The video he'd recorded in the storage unit. The goodbye message I'd watched with Catherine but never revisited alone. His face filled the screen. Exhausted. Haunted. But somehow lighter than I'd seen him in the office. Like confession had released something. I watched the whole thing again. Then I watched it a third time. Listening not for manipulation or performance, but for truth underneath the words. Maybe your brother's death actually means something. Did it? 2 years later, with the training center built and the housing development funded and the corrupt officials in prison, did Michael's death mean something? Or was meaning just the story we told ourselves to survive loss? My phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Hello. Silence. Then breathing. Then a voice I hadn't heard in 2 years. Eleanor. My heart stopped. Adrian. I shouldn't be calling. I know I shouldn't. But I saw the news coverage of the Bronx facility opening. Saw them name it after Michael. And I. His voice cracked. I needed to hear your voice. Know that you're okay. That you survived what we did to each other. Where are you? Somewhere I can't name. Somewhere I'm trying to become someone worth the space I take up. He paused. Did Carlos tell you about the donation? He mentioned an anonymous transfer. I told him I hadn't heard from you. Thank you. For not turning it over to authorities. For letting me continue what I started. I didn't do it for you. I did it because worker housing matters more than your arrest. I know. And you're right. But Eleanor. He stopped. Started again. I think about you constantly. Wonder if you're healing. If you've found whatever comes after revenge. If you hate me or miss me or both. Both. Always both. The admission escaped before I could stop it. You killed my brother. You manipulated me. You built an empire on bones. But you also tried to change. Gave away everything. Created something good from terrible things. I don't know how to hold all of that simultaneously. Neither do I. That's why I left. Because staying meant being tried and convicted and imprisoned. But prison wouldn't help anyone. Wouldn't save lives or reform systems or honor the people I killed. This way, disappearing, working, funding, maybe I do more good. Or maybe you're just running from consequences while telling yourself a noble story. Maybe. Probably. I don't trust my own motives anymore, Eleanor. Don't know where redemption ends and self-deception begins. He laughed softly. That sound without humor I'd learned to recognize. But I'm trying. Every day. Trying to balance scales that will never balance. Trying to earn forgiveness I'll never deserve. From who? God. Society. Me. Myself mostly. Looking in the mirror without wanting to destroy what I see there. The vulnerability in his voice was painful. You taught me that. How to see my reflection instead of the mask I wore. It's the worst gift and the best gift anyone's ever given me. Traffic sounds filtered through his end of the line. Voices in a language I couldn't identify. Proof he was really gone, really living whatever exile he'd chosen. You can't call again, I said. I can't, I need to move forward. And hearing your voice makes that impossible. I know. That's why I'm saying goodbye. Really goodbye this time. Not the ambiguous ending we had before. Final closure. He breathed deeply. I love you. Will. Always. Knowing you was the best thing that ever happened to me and the thing that finally made me face who I'd become. Both are true. Both matter. Adrian. Don't say anything. Just let me say this, you were right. About everything. About how I built my empire. About the cost. About redemption requiring more than performance. You held up the mirror and I finally looked. That took courage I didn't possess until you forced me to find it. Tears burned behind my eyes. I weaponized love. Used your feelings to destroy you. That wasn't courage. That was cruelty disguised as justice. Maybe. Or maybe it was both. Maybe you were cruel and I deserved it. Maybe you loved me and that complicated everything. Maybe none of us gets simple moral categories when we're dealing with grief and revenge and transformation. He was quiet for a moment. I have to go. Stay safe, Eleanor Brennan. Keep building the world your brother would have wanted to see. And know that somewhere, someone who loved you is trying to do the same. Adrian, wait. The line went dead. I sat holding the silent phone, tears finally falling. 2 years and he could still undo me with a phone call. Still make me question whether I'd achieved justice or just created more loss. Still make me love and hate him simultaneously. Still make me wonder what we might have been if we'd met differently. If his ambition hadn't killed my brother. If revenge hadn't structured our entire relationship. If love had been allowed to exist without the weight of grief crushing it. But we hadn't met differently. The past couldn't be rewritten. Michael was dead. Adrian was in exile. I was left holding the inheritance of both their absences. The foundation, the work, the slow, painful process of becoming someone who could live with complicated truth. I opened my laptop. Created a new file. Started typing. Letter to Adrian Blackwell. That will never be sent. Call. 2 years of silence, and then your voice in my ear like no time had passed at all. You said goodbye like you meant it. Maybe you did. Maybe you didn't. With you, I never know where performance ends and truth begins. I've spent 2 years trying to separate love from revenge. Trying to figure out if what we had was real or just mutual manipulation. Trying to decide if I destroyed you or you destroyed yourself or if it was collaborative destruction. Both of us choosing the path that would hurt most. The training center opened today. They named it after Michael. Carlos is building worker housing with your money. Catherine is healing through the foundation work. Everyone is transforming grief into purpose. Everyone except me. I'm stuck. Caught between Eleanor Brennan, who lost her brother, and Eleanor Hartley, who loved you and whoever I'm supposed to become next. 3 women occupying one body. None of them whole. All of them grieving. You asked if I'm healing. I don't know. Maybe. Probably not. Healing suggests an ending and this feels endless. But I'm surviving. Building something from the ashes. Honoring Michael by creating the protections he deserved. That's inheritance too. That's what you left me beyond the foundation and the trials and the complicated truth about human transformation. You taught me that people can change. That monsters can become men. That redemption is possible even when it's incomplete and complicated and inadequate. You also taught me that some sins are unforgivable even when forgiveness happens anyway. That love doesn't require liking. That justice and mercy can coexist messily. I don't know if I'll ever stop missing you. Don't know if that's loyalty or trauma or something that doesn't have a name. But I'm learning to live with it. With the missing. With the contradiction. With the impossible truth that you're the person who destroyed me and the person who made me face who I could become. You said looking in the mirror was the worst gift and best gift. Same Adrian. Goodbye. Really goodbye this time. Eleanor. I saved the file. Encrypted it. Added it to the collection of things I kept but never shared. Evidence of a relationship that existed in shadows and deception, but somehow became more real than anything I'd experienced before or since. My phone buzzed. Text from Catherine. Dinner tomorrow. I want to discuss the next housing development. Also just want to see you. Make sure you're doing okay. I'm okay, I type back. Getting there anyway. Dinner sounds good. It was the truth. Not complete truth but close enough. I was getting there. It's okay. To healing. To becoming whoever Eleanor Brennan would evolve into next. The foundation work helped. Seeing Michael's name on buildings. Knowing his death had catalyzed change. Understanding that tragedy didn't have to be meaningless, even if meaning had to be constructed deliberately rather than discovered naturally. 6 months later, Catherine and I stood in another building. This one the first completed housing development funded by the foundation. 50 units of affordable apartments for families of construction workers. A ribbon cutting. Politicians and press. Carlos cutting the ribbon alongside a woman who'd lost her husband to a workplace accident 3 years ago. She'd been living in a shelter with her 2 children. Now she had keys to a 2-bedroom apartment with windows that overlooked a community garden. "This is what redemption looks like," Catherine murmured. "Not Adrian avoiding prison. Families housed. Lives rebuilt. Systems reformed. You think he knows. Wherever he is. I think he's watching. Keeping track somehow. Making sure the money does what it's supposed to do." She turned to me. "And I think he's proud of you. Of what you've become. How you've transformed revenge into purpose." "I haven't transformed anything. I'm just surviving." "Survival is transformation. You're not the woman who planted that tracker 2 years ago. Not the person consumed by revenge. You've become someone who builds instead of destroys. Someone who honors loss by preventing future loss." That's profound change, Eleanor. Maybe she was right. Maybe survival was transformation. Maybe becoming someone who could hold complexity without breaking was its own kind of strength. We toured the building. Met families. Heard stories of lives destroyed by construction accidents and slowly being rebuilt through foundation support. Every story was Michael's story. Lena's story. Every family was mine and Catherine's. And every apartment was funded by Adrian's fortune. His empire dismantled and reconstructed into something that saved rather than cost lives. That evening, alone in my apartment, I received an email from an encrypted account. I saw the news. The housing development. Families. What you've built from what I destroyed. I was wrong to call 6 months ago. Wrong to disrupt your healing. This is the last time. Promise. After this silence. But I needed you to know you won. Not the way you planned. Not the victory you imagined when you started this. But you won. You destroyed who I was and forced me to become who I should have been. You took my empire and transformed it into something that actually matters. You held me accountable in ways I didn't think were possible. And you survived becoming someone capable of that destruction. That's the real victory. I'm proud of you. That's probably presumptuous. Probably something I have no right to feel. But I'm proud of who you've become. Of the strength it took to hold all the contradiction. Of the courage required to love and hate simultaneously. Of the work you're doing to honor Michael's memory. Thank you for seeing me. For destroying me. For letting me destroy myself into something better. This is goodbye. For real this time. I won't contact you again. Won't disrupt your peace. But know that somewhere, someone who loved you is still trying to earn what you gave him. A mirror that showed truth instead of masks. Be well, Eleanor Brennan. Build the world your brother would have wanted. P.S. The Foundation has an anonymous trust that will continue funding worker protections indefinitely. Long after I'm dead. Long after you've forgotten my name. The work continues. That's the only inheritance that matters. I read it 3 times. Then I did something I hadn't done before. I replied. You're right. This has to be the last time. I need to move forward without your voice in my head. Without wondering where you are or who you've become or whether redemption is real or performed. But before silence, thank you. For trying. For actually changing even when it would have been easier to stay who you were. For giving away everything to serve something beyond yourself. For understanding that accountability matters more than comfort. I don't forgive you. I might never forgive you. Michael is still dead. The years of my life spent planning revenge are still gone. The grief is still heavy and endless. But I understand you. And maybe understanding is better than forgiveness. More honest. More real. You asked once how many ghosts fit behind my eyes. Too many. Yours included now. You've become a ghost I carry alongside Michael. Different kind of loss, different kind of grief, but loss nonetheless. You said I won. Maybe. Or maybe we both lost and both won simultaneously. Maybe that's what happens when justice and love collide. Nobody gets clean victories, just complicated survival. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. Peace or punishment or purpose. I hope the mirror you're looking into shows someone you can live with. I hope the scales you're trying to balance eventually feel less impossible. And I hope someday I can think of you without my chest tightening. Without wondering what we might have been. without missing someone who shouldn't be missed. Goodbye, Adrian. Really, truly, finally goodbye. Thank you for the inheritance. I'll use it well. I sent it before I could reconsider. Watched the email disappear into encrypted space. Wondered if he'd read it tonight or tomorrow or never. Wondered if it mattered. Then I closed the laptop. Shut down the encrypted files. Made myself tea and sat by the window watching Manhattan light up like a circuit board below. The city Adrian had shaped. That had shaped him. That now held his inheritance. Not just buildings but systems reformed. Lives protected. Families housed. All the things he should have built from the beginning instead of an empire on bones. I was part of that inheritance too. Whether I wanted to be or not. The woman who'd destroyed and built simultaneously. Who'd weaponized love and somehow ended up loving anyway. Who'd sought revenge and found something more complicated and painful and real. My phone buzzed. Catherine. Coffee tomorrow morning? Want to discuss the next 5 housing developments. Yes, I typed back. 8 a.m. work. Perfect. You're doing good work, Eleanor. Important work. Be proud of that. I wasn't sure about proud. But I was surviving. Transforming grief into purpose one building at a time. Honoring Michael by creating protections he'd deserved. Learning to live with ghosts and contradictions and the weight of inheritance. Learning that redemption wasn't about forgiveness or forgetting. It was about choosing every day to build something better than what was destroyed. To use pain as catalyst rather than prison. To become someone who could hold complexity without breaking. That was Adrian's final gift to me. Understanding that transformation hurt. That choosing better required destroying what came before. That inheritance included both the damage and the healing, the loss and the rebuilding, the ending and the beginning. I'd spent 3 years planning his destruction. 2 years watching that destruction ripple outward. And now I was spending my life building from the ashes. Not because he deserved it. Not because forgiveness had happened. But because Michael deserved it. Because Elena deserved it. Because every worker who'd ever died in a preventable accident deserved a world that valued their lives over profit margins. That was the inheritance I chose. The only one that mattered. The rest, the love, the loss, the complicated grief for a man I destroyed and mourned, that was mine to carry. Mine to transform slowly into something survivable. And I would survive it, transform it, build from it, one day at a time, one building at a time, one choice at a time to honor loss by preventing future loss. That was redemption. Not perfect, not clean. Not even close to enough. But real. Honest. And that would have to be enough. Epilogue. The letter he'll never receive. 5 years after Adrian's disappearance. The letter sat in my desk drawer for 3 months before I finally had the courage to write it. Not because I intended to send it. I'd learned years ago that closure didn't come from contact. It came from accepting that some stories didn't have neat endings. Some questions never got answered. Some ghosts never fully left. But Catherine had suggested it during one of our monthly dinners, the ritual we'd maintained for 5 years, 2 women bound by loss and the complicated work of transformation. Write him a letter, she'd said over wine that had gotten progressively better as the foundation's success grew. Not to send. Just to clarify your own thoughts. To put down everything you've never said. Sometimes we need to speak into the void to hear our own truth. So here I was. Late March evening. Spring trying to assert itself against New York's stubborn winter. My apartment. A real apartment now, 2 bedrooms with art on the walls and plants that somehow stayed alive. Quiet except for city sounds filtering through windows. I pulled out paper. An actual pen. Some things required the physical act of writing. The muscle memory of forming words by hand. The permanence of ink. Dear Adrian. Stop. Crossed it out. Started again. Adrian. It's been 5 years. 5 years since you disappeared. 4.5 since our last contact. Long enough that I've stopped jumping every time an unknown number calls. Long enough that I can think about you without my chest tightening. Long enough that the grief has shifted from acute to chronic. Manageable, survivable, almost comfortable in its familiarity. Almost. The foundation just opened its 15th housing development. 300 families housed this year alone. The Torres Memorial Centers now operate in 12 cities across the country. We're training 10,000 workers annually in safety protocols, workers' rights, and the kind of protections that should have existed from the beginning. Carlos Rivera is the foundation director now. Catherine chairs the board. I run the safety training program. We've built something extraordinary from the ruins of your empire. Something that actually matters. Something Michael would have been proud of. Something Elena would have believed was possible even when no one else did. You asked once if I was healing. 5 years later I can finally answer yes and no. The wound is still there. Always will be. Michael's absence is permanent. The years I lost to revenge don't come back. The woman I was before his death, naive, optimistic, believing in simple justice, she's gone forever. But I've built someone new from the pieces. Someone who can hold contradiction. Who understands that people are complex and justice is messy and love doesn't make sense but happens anyway. Someone who can honor loss by preventing future loss. Someone who survived becoming the person capable of destroying you. That's healing, I guess. Not the fairy tale kind where wounds close and scars fade. The real kind where you learn to live with damage. Where you build meaning from grief. Where you accept that some questions will never be answered and that's okay. Catherine says you're probably dead by now. That men who disappear that thoroughly usually don't survive long. That whatever exile you chose likely consumed you years ago. She thinks I should stop writing these letters. Stop holding space for a ghost who might be literally gone. But I don't think you're dead. I think you're somewhere still trying to balance those impossible scales. Still looking in mirrors and seeing someone you're learning to live with. Still making amends in ways that matter even if no one knows it's you doing it. I think you're alive because the foundation keeps receiving anonymous donations. Small ones now. 50,000 here, 100,000 there. Nothing traceable. Nothing that draws attention. But consistent. Purposeful. The amounts always specific enough to fund exactly what we need next. That's you. I know it's you. Still throwing money at problems. Still trying to buy redemption even while understanding it can't be bought. Still Adrian Blackwell underneath whatever name and life you've constructed. And I'm glad. Glad you're alive. Glad you're trying. Glad the scales you're balancing feel less impossible than they did 5 years ago. I'm glad even though I spent 3 years planning your destruction. Even though your impatience killed my brother. Even though loving you was the most complicated thing I've ever experienced. Here's what I've learned, Adrian. You were right about redemption requiring action rather than just accepting punishment. Prison would have been easier for you. Passive suffering, debt paid, life sentence defining your identity. But it wouldn't have saved anyone. Wouldn't have reformed the systems that killed Michael and Elena and 18 other documented victims. This way, your way, messy and imperfect and morally ambiguous as it is, it actually helps people. The foundation saves lives. The housing protects families. The training gives workers tools to defend themselves from the next Adrian Blackwell, who prioritizes profit over safety. So maybe you chose correctly. Maybe running wasn't cowardice disguised as nobility. Maybe it was the bravest thing you could have done, removing yourself entirely so the work could continue without your shadow corrupting it. Or maybe I'm just telling myself comforting stories because accepting that I fell in love with someone irredeemable is too painful. Both can be true. Both probably are true. I'm learning to live with that. You taught me something important. That people can change and also remain fundamentally themselves. You became someone who valued accountability and still stayed someone capable of escaping it. You transformed through genuine remorse and also performed transformation strategically. All of it was real. All of it was manipulation. Human beings are contradictions wrapped in skin, and trying to separate the pure from the tainted is a fool's errand. I was a fool once. Thought I could execute perfect revenge. Destroy you cleanly. Walk away satisfied with justice achieved. But revenge, I learned, is like fire. It burns everything, including the person holding the match. I destroyed you and destroyed parts of myself in the process. We were both casualties of my need for vengeance. And somehow, from that mutual destruction, we built something worth having. Not a relationship, those are built on honesty and trust and all the things we never had. But something. A shared understanding that transformation costs everything. That healing requires facing your reflection no matter how ugly it is. That love and justice can coexist even when they tear you apart. I don't love you anymore. Or maybe I do and I've just learned to live with it. Maybe love doesn't expire just because it's inconvenient or inappropriate or based on lies and manipulation. Maybe it just shifts shape, becomes something you carry rather than something that carries you. A scar instead of a wound. A ghost instead of a presence. Can live with that. Have been living with it for 5 years. Will continue living with it for however many years I have left. That's my inheritance from you, Adrian. Not the foundation money or the buildings with Michael's name or the systems reformed. Those are important, but they're not personal. They're not the thing that changed me fundamentally. You taught me that I could become someone capable of prolonged deception. Of weaponizing intimacy. Of destroying someone while loving them. That I could hold those contradictions without shattering. That survival sometimes means accepting you're not the hero of your own story. You're just a person who did terrible things for understandable reasons and now has to live with that. You taught me what power actually costs. Not money or time or reputation. But pieces of your soul. The ability to look in the mirror without flinching. The luxury of simple moral categories. The comfort of believing you're purely good fighting purely evil. None of us is pure. We're all compromised by the choices we make in grief, in love, in desperate need for justice or redemption or meaning. We're all trying to balance scales that can't be balanced. We're all ghosts haunting ourselves. I wish Michael had lived. I wish your ambition hadn't killed him. I wish I'd never had to become Eleanor Hartley or execute 3 years of calculated deception or testify about our relationship in federal court. I wish love had been allowed to exist without the weight of death and revenge crushing it. But wishing changes nothing. Reality is what it is. Michael is dead. You're in exile. I'm building from the ashes of what we destroyed together. And somehow, impossibly, that has to be enough. Catherine thinks I'm still in love with you. She's wrong. I'm not in love with you. I'm in grief for you, for who you were, who you became, who you might have been if we'd met differently. For the relationship we never got to have because revenge structured every moment. For the version of us that could have existed in a world where your impatience hadn't killed my brother. That's different from love. Quieter. Less consuming. Survivable. Can live with grief. I've been living with it since Michael died. Adding your ghost to the collection doesn't fundamentally change the architecture of my loss. It just makes the haunting more crowded. Here's the truth I've never told anyone. I'm glad you ran. Glad you chose exile over trial. Glad the foundation has your money instead of the government having your imprisonment. Because prison would have been finite. 10 years, 20 years, eventually released. Eventually returning to rebuild in the same corrupt systems. This way you're gone forever. Can never return without facing arrest. Can never corrupt what we're building from your fortune. You removed yourself completely. And that removal created space for actual transformation. So thank you. For running. For giving away everything. For understanding that redemption required erasure. For loving me enough to disappear so I could build something untainted by your presence. Thank you for destroying me and letting me destroy you and somehow both of us surviving to build from the wreckage. Thank you for the inheritance. I'm using it well. Better than you ever could have. That's justice, I think. Not the kind I imagined when I started this. Lucy. More complicated. More real. But justice nonetheless. I hope you're proud of what we've built. I hope wherever you are you can see it. The housing developments. The training centers. The lives saved. The systems reformed. All of it purchased with your billions and my 3 years of lies. I hope you found whatever peace is available to men who've done what you did. I hope the mirror shows someone you can live with most days. I hope the scales feel balanced enough that you can sleep at night. And I hope, this is the hardest thing to admit, I hope you're happy. Or at least content. Or at minimum, surviving with purpose like I am. Because even after everything, I can't wish suffering on you. Can't hope you're drowning in guilt and pain and endless regret. That doesn't make me noble. Just makes me tired. Tired of carrying rage. Tired of performing hatred I don't fully feel. Tired of pretending destruction felt like victory. So here's the truth, I miss you. Not who you were. Not the man who killed my brother or manipulated city officials or built empires on bones. But the version of you that emerged briefly when my push forced your transformation. The man who looked in the mirror and chose to be better. The person who was capable of genuine remorse and actual change. I miss the possibility of that person. The potential that got aborted when you ran. The relationship we might have built if history hadn't trapped us in roles of victim and destroyer. But possibility doesn't pay rent. Potential doesn't save lives. Nostalgia for alternate timelines doesn't honor the dead. So I live in this timeline. The real one. Where Michael is dead and you're gone and I'm slowly transforming revenge into purpose. Where justice is incomplete and love is complicated and healing takes longer than anyone admits. This is the last letter I'll write to you. After this, I'm done addressing the ghost. Done speaking into the void hoping for response. Done holding space for a relationship that existed mostly in lies and manipulation. I'm choosing finally and completely to live forward instead of backward. To honor Michael by building protections rather than nursing grief. To honor the brief real thing between us by accepting its impossibility and moving on. So goodbye, Adrian Blackwell. For the third and final time. Really, truly, actually goodbye. Thank you for teaching me that power is protection. I've learned now that love is surrender. Neither of us were wrong. But only one of us learned to survive. Only one of us gets to keep building. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. I hope the scales eventually balance. I hope the ghosts behind your eyes become companions instead of tormentors. And I hope someday somewhere you understand that I did love you. Genuinely. Messily. Impossibly. I loved you despite every reason not to. And that love, corrupted and weaponized as it became, was still the truest thing I've ever felt. That's my final inheritance to you. The knowledge that you were loved. By someone who knew exactly who you were. By someone who destroyed you and mourned you and somehow kept loving you anyway. You weren't beyond redemption, Adrian. You were just too late for salvation. And that's enough tragedy for one life. Be well wherever you are. Build well. Live well. And know that somewhere in New York someone who once loved you is doing the same. Eleanor. I read the letter 3 times. Then I did something I'd never done before with the others. I didn't burn it. Instead I folded it carefully. Placed it in an envelope. Addressed it to a location unknown, in my neatest handwriting. Sealed it with the kind of finality that felt like closure. Then I walked to the building's incinerator chute. Stood there holding the envelope. The letter that would never be received. The final message to a ghost who might be dead or alive or something in between. Goodbye, Adrian, I whispered to the empty hallway. Thank you for the mirror. I'm finally ready to look into it alone. I dropped the envelope down the chute. Watched it disappear into darkness and flame. The ashes curled upward through the building's ventilation. Rose into New York's perpetual exhaust. Became indistinguishable from all the other combustion and decay and transformation that made cities breathe. Exactly where the story began. Fire and smoke and endings that felt like beginnings. I returned to my apartment. Maid. Sat by the window watching Manhattan light up as evening fell. Tomorrow I had meetings about the next housing development. Training sessions to plan. Foundation business to conduct. The work that had become my life's purpose continued regardless of ghosts and grief and letters written to men who'd never read them. My phone buzzed. Catherine. Still on for dinner Friday. There's someone I want you to meet. Another survivor. Working on construction reform in Chicago. I think you two would get along. Sounds good, I typed back. I'm ready. And I was. Ready to meet new people whose stories didn't include Adrian. Ready to build relationships based on honesty instead of deception. Ready to live forward instead of backward. Ready to inherit the future instead of the past. The letter was gone. The ghost released. The final words spoken into void and transformed into ash. And I, Eleanor Brennan, who'd been Eleanor Hartley, who'd been consumed by revenge and transformed by love and rebuilt by purpose. I remained. Complicated. Guard. Surviving. Building. Exactly as I should be. The inheritance was mine now. All of it. The foundation, the work, the complex truth about redemption and justice and the price of transformation. And the knowledge that some stories don't have satisfying endings. Some ghosts never fully leave. Some love persists even when it shouldn't. But life continues anyway. Buildings rise. Families are housed. Workers are protected. Purpose replaces rage. Healing, slow and imperfect and incomplete, happens. That was enough. Had to be enough. Was enough. I finished my tea as darkness completed its takeover of the sky. Tomorrow would come with its meetings and plans and the steady work of building from ashes. But tonight, just for tonight, I let myself miss him. The man who'd killed my brother. The man who'd loved me. The man who'd taught me that transformation required destroying everything and starting again. Just for tonight, I held all the contradiction without trying to resolve it. And then I let it go. Released it into the same void that held the letter. Let the ghost finally rest. Tomorrow I'd wake up and continue building. But tonight I mourned. One last time. For Michael. For Adrian. For Eleanor Hartley and the life she'd never live. For the possibility that had died when history trapped us in roles we couldn't escape. For all of it. For none of it. For the complicated truth that some grief becomes permanent while still losing its power to destroy. The body remembers. And mine would remember this night for the rest of my life. The night I finally let Adrian Blackwell go. The night the inheritance became fully mine. The night I chose to live forward instead of backward. The night I wrote the letter he'd never receive and burned it into ash and watched those ashes curl into dawn. Exactly where the story began. Exactly where it ended. Exactly where it had to end. With fire and smoke and the long slow work of becoming someone who could survive the burning. I was that someone now. Finally. Completely. Irrevocably. And that would have to be enough. The end.